won't this go? There it is. All right, there we go.
I have to kick us off with a classic drum roll. I don't know what instrument I was going with.
That was not a strike. Clearly. So you guys really can't see.
We're watching baseball.
But there's a lot of dedication on this table right now. Mack's got the Kansas City Sox game on right now. It's one apiece in that game. That's 5-4, 3 double play. That was too easy. I got the Yankees trying to end this 7-game losing streak against the Mets. They're up 1-0 with Mike Ford, who just was blatantly ball forward. There we go. Can you call that a ball? And they're actually up 1-0. But at the way the Yankees bullpen is right now, no lead is safe. Jeebus, dude. I never understood how a guy who can throw 100 miles an hour stays throwing sliders.
Yeah.
Aroldis Chapman drives me flipping nuts. Like, I love the guy and everything, and I'm glad he's our closer. But can you stop falling in love? If Mariano Rivera can close 600-plus games with a flipping cutter that wasn't even close to 100 miles an hour, you're going to tell me that you can't throw flipping the same fastball, dude, and throw it like no one can flip and touch it?
And the slider's fast, too, so it's like not even a change of pace. It's just like fast movement or fast straight through the middle.
Right.
You know?
That's what I'm saying, dude. And it's like he goes out there and then like he'll miss the fastball twice and then it's just slider. For what, dude? They want you to throw that because they know you can't control it. They know it's an over-the-plate pitch to set up for the heat.
Yeah.
Just throw the heat. God bless.
That's what they said in Major League. Just throw the damn heat.
Just throw the damn heat. Man.
I'm going to be distracted all game because of this baseball.
Derek says the bullpen's trash. Yeah, nah, dude. Freaking Chad Green in 2 games. The game against Atlanta. 2 outs. Gives up this out-of-this-world single. And then just left one of them stupid-ass sliders right over the plate for one of the best hitters in baseball, Freddie Freeman, to take over in left center field. So how does he do in the hurrah in yesterday's first game? All he did was up 4-1 with 2 men on base, blows Pete Alonso away with the first fastball, blows Pete Alonso away with the second fastball, and then him and Gary Sanchez thought it'd be smart just to throw sliders for them to just, on a 3-2 count, let the fastball right down the middle of the plate. It's 4-4. So then you thought Chad Green was done with that, right? Nope. Dumbass gives another fastball straight to Dominic Smith, plants it in right center field. And just if the Mets didn't need another run, freaking Pete Marisnick takes him deep again. This jackass gave up 3 home runs before he could get a third out. God bless, dude. Aaron Boone is driving me nuts because Aaron Boone, on moves that he should be making, he's not making.
Yeah.
On moves that he shouldn't make, he is making.
Who's a pitching coach for you guys?
Matt Blake, who used to be some, I don't know, analytics guy for the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah. Clearly right now things are not going well for Yankees hurlers.
No. And it's all over the place, dude. We just got LeMahieu back. But now Judge calf hurts again. Mm-hmm. Now we were just told Glaber's gone 3 to 6 weeks. Stanton was already out 3 to 6 weeks. Aaron Hicks couldn't hit the broadside of a barn right now. Gary Sanchez is still swinging at sliders that are at his ankle.
How about Zach Britton?
It's on the DL.
Ugh.
Jesus, dude. Tommy Canley, gone for the year, has to have Tommy John.
Ouch.
It just keeps adding up.
If there isn't more proof of there being 2 sides of the coin, I'm on the other side of the bed today because we woke up in first place. When I say we, the White Sox, three-way tie for first place, and the AL is super competitive right now. I mean, the Yankees are fighting for that spot with Tampa Bay in the East, but I mean, there's looking to be 3 teams right now out of the Central that are going to be basically there the whole time, and the Indians, the Royals, and the White Sox. I'm sorry, the Indians, the Twins, and the White Sox. But then you got Tampa Bay, you got the Yankees, you got the Athletics, you got Houston, who's getting hot again now. So yeah, right now it's competitive, and the teams who are staying healthy are doing relatively well, and the teams that aren't, which the White Sox were one of them, they're tending to struggle right now.
Man, dude. There was
you guys
yesterday,
have depth, though. At least you guys have some depth in the outfield,
But Aaron Boone, for some reason, acts like he doesn't know how to use it. Hold on, let me stop Derek right now. I never said to fire Aaron Boone. I'm just saying Aaron Boone's got to stop out-managing himself. Sometimes that move you think you should go out and do, you don't need to do. When Jordan Montgomery has a comfortable 4-1 lead, and happens to give up a couple singles, it's okay to let him go one more batter in a 7-inning game as a starting pitcher when he's only thrown 66 pitches. It's okay to leave him out there. It's the same reason why Garrett Cole got all pissed off that one game when Garrett Cole flipped out when he got taken out when he was at 100-some pitches. But that's the thing that's what I'm trying to get at. If I'm paying, this isn't a 162-game season. Mm-hmm. This is a short 60-game season.
Yeah.
These guys are getting millions of dollars to throw the ball. Let them throw the damn ball.
Yeah.
Stop all the analytics crap.
And it's been 30-plus games now. Like, I think the excuses of, like, these guys aren't in the rhythm, that's gone now because, we're halfway through the 60-game season. I know that there has been, the White Sox and the Yankees have both, fell victim to some of the rescheduling. I know the Yankees had a couple doubleheaders, and so did the White Sox, but the Cubs as well. The Cubs played 5 games in 3 days with the Cardinals. So depth or stamina or whatever, that's out the window at this point, man. And I think the teams that are trending upwards right now, they're not worried about stamina. They're like, listen, we got to go for this. This is a 60-game season. These types of things don't come very often. I don't care what anyone says. I hear a lot of people saying, well, do you really want to win it this year? Yes, you want to win it this year. You absolutely do because, it's still a championship, and it's very important that we sort of set the standard that, listen, we made these guys go out and play for 60 games. We need to have a resolution to this. So I just feel like right now the MLB is trying to play a little bit more damage control about the format of the season. Now they're talking about maybe adding a bubble for the playoffs and trying to propose that. But yeah, as far as the schedule is concerned, I think it's leveled out for the most part, and I think most teams should be ready to play down the stretch here because the next 30 games, obviously it goes without saying, for the next 20-something games for most of these teams, that's going to be basically the seeding. I think as it sits right now, I think the Yankees and the White Sox would play in the first round.
Yep.
And that's going to be huge. It's going to be huge for teams to figure out seeding. So, yeah, there's a lot to play for over the next 25 or so games as the Mets get out of the inning.
God bless, dude.
Freaking
DJ LeMay, who's oh my God, dude. It's 3-0. You throw a ball down the middle of the plate.
Was that 3-0?
That should be it was 3-2.
Oh, 3-2.
That should be an automatic green light.
Yeah.
That should be a green light. You know you're gonna get hit
against Familia.
Golly, dude.
Oh man.
My buddy was like, man, I can feel your frustration. You should be yelling like that in the playoffs. You think? The Yankees out here looking like idiots, dude. Straight morons.
There's gonna be a lot of ugly play from teams like ours. Like the White Sox saw it a week and a half ago against the Cardinals. They got swept in a doubleheader, and it was like, you're like, oh, half of our team is hurt, and the guys that are out there right now are not cutting it. But it balances out. The Yankees had that tremendous start to the season that really helped them, where they're at, 16-13 right now is the record. Yeah. So, that most of that came in the first week and a half, 2 weeks of the season when they were, playing unstoppable ball. So it's all about the ebbs and flows of the season. The White Sox are going through that right now. Yesterday, the White Sox I was telling you, were up 5-4 in the ninth inning, and you saw a little bit of the 2018 White Sox in there. You're like, okay, now they're throwing errors across the diamond, this, and that, and turns out that the ball game's tied at 5, and going into the bottom of the ninth after giving up the lead in the top of the ninth. The White Sox over the last 5 years would more than likely have lost that game, but instead Grandal hits a home run in the bottom of the ninth, and we walk off and get a win. So, that's what it's going to be about this week. Who can scrap the most, and right now my team 9 out of 10 for them, and that's really huge in a season like this. We talked about it. Every game is 2.8 games essentially. So and let's see if we can get this out of here. Get out. Oh yeah, 2-run home run, Edward Encarnacion. The Parrot is out, and it's a 2-run.
He says, "How about his Rays?" I mean, they're good. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, right. Want to rub it in his face?
Exactly.
No,
we got a big 3-game series.
But also that shows the ebbs and flows that we were just talking about, right? The Rays hit the absolute crap out of the ball for a week and a half, and then next thing you know, the pitching kind of comes in and starts to pick up on some of the things. So it's ebbs and flows, man. It's like that's what it's going to be this year. Who can carry you? Right now, the offense, I mean, for the White Sox has carried them for a huge stretch, and now the pitching over the last 2 weeks has carried them in some ways. So everything is going to come together. But yeah, the Rays are pretty good. But with this year, doesn't even really matter to talk about who's good and who's not good. We're you're gonna have what? You're gonna have 8 teams make the playoff? No, 10 teams make the playoffs essentially this year, in each division, right? Because it's top 2 and then 2 wild cards. So top 2 in each division would be 6, and then 2 wild cards. Yep. I'm sorry, so it would be 8. Yep. It would be 8. Yep. So essentially, you're looking at 8 playoff teams. As long as you're a playoff team, who cares how you're playing in end of August? Let's see who's playing really well end of September, beginning of October, because that's when obviously that's when the champions are going to be made.
Freaking J Happ right now. All the hats in the world off to J Happ. Because he's kind of been like the weak link, so to speak, in the rotation. But this man's out here pitching a gem right now, going in the 8th inning, and thank God for flipping Aaron Boone to not take him out right now. Let him finish the game. Come on, dude.
Is top of the 8th right now?
Top of the 8th. We're going to strike out Cano right here, or he'll ground the second. He's not going to run hard. Bingo. See, that's what I'm talking about, man. Let him finish the flipping game. Yeah. Bunch of grown-ass men throwing a baseball that are supposed to throw between 100 to 120 pitches. Let him pitch. Oh, and here comes Aaron Boone to take him out. Oh, my God. The move we don't need to make.
He's only at 90. I mean, it's not like he
could. Look. He's like, come on, man.
I could go through the inning.
He's like, oh my God. I'm letting everybody know there's a great chance I'm going to cuss out a storm by the time this show's over.
Who's he bringing in?
I don't know. It better not be Chad Green. That's all I know.
Oh, man, that was as if to be on cue. And speaking of gems of performances, Lucas Giolito just had a no-hitter earlier this week.
That he did.
Almost a perfect game. If it wasn't for C.B. Buckner doing C.B. Buckner things, it might have been a perfect game. I don't know if you saw this, but one of the funniest, unintentionally funny things that ever happened in a no-hitter, directly after the no-hitter, James McCann turned around and pointed at C.B. like, you're the reason why we got this, because C.B. was terrible all night, but he was consistent about the plate all night. So, you know how it is with umpires, right? Okay, you can be off, right? You can be calling the low strike, but you have to call the low strike all game, right? That's the key, right? Like, okay, you're not going to call something up and in, fine, but don't call that later on in the game, and that's what you get with CB Buckner. He's going to make his own plate, but he's going to be consistent with it all game. So James McCann and Lucas Giolito took advantage of it, and let's be honest, it was the Pirates, Wasn't expecting much from the Pirates as it was, but yeah, tremendous kind of a coming out party for Lucas Giolito, because let's remember, dude, this dude had the worst ERA in the league in 2018, statistically one of the worst pitchers in the league 2 years ago. Now the ace of the staff and a no-hitter. Lots of positive things for the White Sox right now. Listen, are we going to win? Are we going to be equipped to win this year? It really depends. I mean, we just traded for Gerard Dyson to get a nice little, defense and a pair of cleats on the bench, but you're going to need to be in on Lance Lynn. You're going to need to be in on, hopefully, if all goes well, you get another 2 bullpen arms. So, that's going to be crucial for us because, yes, this team is really good, but this team isn't equipped quite yet to go deep. And we're really young. I mean, people forget. Like, yeah, we have a really good team, but half of our team is under 26.
Yep.
So they're going to need more reinforcements, and hopefully we get that because, I have a hard time. Like, you're looking at the Rays, again, another, I hate to bring them up again, but, some of these players you look at and you're like, where did you find this guy? Like, I've never heard of this guy before, and all of a sudden now he's a world beater for you, and that's what the good organizations do, right? The good organizations find people that nobody else knows about, and they make them great. So, until the White Sox get to that level, I'm not going to rest on my laurels. I think we still need some reinforcements, especially arms, because Ronaldo Lopez isn't doing it right now. 2-0.
So they brought in Adam Ottavino. So let's see how this goes. Ottavino's not bad, man. When that slider's on.
Yeah, and I was really mad when the White Sox didn't, or when he signed with you guys instead of the White Sox last year, because
the Cubs were in that run too, because they needed a closer. They wanted to use him as a closer. He chose to go with the Yankees.
And speaking, oh no,
that's foul. That's foul. That's oh my God. That's what I'm talking about.
On cue.
Bro.
And that's poor J.A. Happ.
Why would you bring out J. Happ when he's pitching just fine? Oh. That's what I'm talking about. The move you didn't need to make, you made. He was just fine. God bless.
If you guys couldn't tell, Adam Ottavino just gave up a solo home run to
freaking Wilson Ramos.
Yeah, Wilson Ramos, and It was almost foul and went off the foul pole, and it's a tie game in the 8th inning in Citi Field. Oh no, they're at home. You guys are at home, right?
Dude,
yeah, they're at home.
I swear, dude. Aaron Boone's driving me nuts, dude. He's driving me nuts, dude. Just manage the game, bro.
Poor J.A. Happ, and now we get the J.A. Happ view of him getting disappointed. Poor guy. I mean, listen. If you're at 110. Okay, you're at 90, and you are rolling through the lineup like that, have given up nothing in 8 1/3 or 7 1/3. I think it's fair to leave him in the game for at least another 2
guess we got to play the numbers. It's a right-handed batter, Wilson Ramos. God forbid that Wilson, you got him out. He's old for whatever.
And now you got Dominic Smith, a left-hander against a right-hander now. So the matchup, this whole idea, as baseball fans, we've been indoctrinated into believing that the best matchup, every single time a lefty comes up, you bring in your lefty pitcher. Every time a righty comes up, you bring in your right. And that's just not necessarily true anymore, dude. Like, you've got to go with the flow of the game. I mean, I'll give you an example of the White Sox. I mean, Dallas Keuchel was at 110 pitches for the White Sox against the Cubs. We were well in the lead on that game. But when your pitcher's feeling good, when the catcher is making the right decisions, you leave him in the game. And he did. And he pitched 118. Did 118 kill Dallas Keuchel that night? No. He was fine. He made his next start and gave up 2 runs in 7 innings. So, clearly managerial decisions here are the shortcoming of the Yankees so far the last week at least.
At least the last week.
Yeah.
At least last week. They said, I heard something interesting today that the Yankees have not been on a 7th. The last time the Yankees lost 8 games in a row was back in 95.
Oh, wow.
They went, long time. And then they went 26-7 after the 8-game losing streak. To grab that wild card that Seattle ended up beating them in 5 games in.
Wow.
My thing is this. First off, there might not be a team that cannot wait for it to be the September than the way the New York Yankees have figured out this last week.
Yeah, man.
I mean, it's been a joke. And, like, the biggest joke out of all this, 5 of the 7 losses have been at Yankee Stadium of all places.
Yeah.
Even in the doubleheader yesterday when you were playing the quote-unquote away team, which another reason why Rob Manfred's a flipping dope, 7 innings in a game. That's BS. You're going to tell me these grown-ass men can't play 2 extra innings? Are we really trying to save that extra 2 hours in the day with everything, man, piss off. Dude.
Or at least,
God's
I mean,
such a mope.
It's as if shaving off 4 innings in the day makes up for the lack of depth. Meaning, like, if you really care about the players and the health of the players, you just add to the roster when they have double headers. It's normally what we've done in the past. You get 1 extra player during double headers, make it 3. And just let him play the full 9. Because the real worry that Rob Manfred, and let's be honest, a lot of these old heads in baseball all carry this same thought process, which is that, oh, you just saved yourself 4 innings that day, and your arms don't have to pitch 4 innings that day. And it's like, yeah, but that's not, I mean, listen, for a team like, the Yankees or the White Sox right now that are trying to, establish themselves at the top of the league, you need those extra 4 innings to gain leads and to close down leads. So I agree. They're trying to save arms, but I just don't see the math around how eliminating 4 innings in 2 games is going to do anything.
We'll see how this stuff goes.
Oh man. Yeah, it's also one of those things where it's like this season is so weird. Like you mentioned, like losing at home, and does losing at home even really matter anymore? Because it's like there's nobody in the crowd. Clearly, these players don't see home field advantage as home field advantage anymore.
Depends on who you talk to, because Aaron Judge came out about, a few days ago and said that he was not in favor of Major League Baseball trying to do a bubble for the playoffs. For that same reason, because he's felt like that you would lose the quote-unquote home field advantage if you did it. And I guess in baseball it's a little bit different, and I happen to agree, because obviously the dynamics of the field,
dimensions of the
field,
that's
is
true.
A little bit different
That's
than
true.
like if everyone's playing on the same 100 yard field,
True.
or the same, however long the ice is and
That's
the
a good
basketball
point. It's
court
different
is,
playing left field
Right.
in Yankee Stadium than it is at the G-Rate. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, no, you're gonna lose that dynamic portion of it, but as much as a mope as Rob Manfred is, he's probably not going to care and be like, you know what? I think if we went ahead and used Houston as one of the bubble fields because they got that retractable roof, I think we can get away with that. Because we did this last week when we talked about places that if they decided to go do the bubble, where they could go.
Roofs and,
right. So
Miller Park,
Houston, Miami.
You could do Tampa Bay if you wanted to.
You could do Tampa Bay if you wanted to. But I think a lot of these other places, because the only other place that would make sense is the Sky Dome, and they already told the Blue Jays you can't play up here, which I found kind of weird, because it's like the NHL playoffs are up there in Toronto and wherever else in Canada. They said that was fine.
Edmonton. So they were worried. Here's what it was. The Rodgers Center, who owns that building, was worried that the MLB didn't have a bubble in place. That, okay, you could come and play here, but what's going to happen? Who's going to be holding these players accountable, right? And I think that was the real worry about it, was that, and we already seen it, let's be honest. We saw people going to strip clubs and this and this and that. And the idea is that how can we keep them in this hotel, because the hotel is directly attached to the stadium? How can we keep them in without having some protocol? If the MLB came out and said, hey, Rodgers Center, we're going to put protocol around this, maybe it'll change their mind, because it didn't seem to be the issue of like spacing or safety. It seemed to be the fact that the MLB was a little bit loose-lipped on what they wanted to do. They weren't exactly, let's be honest, the NBA and the NHL haven't had one positive test since the bubble began.
Yep.
That is worth mentioning. That, listen, the MLB sort of dropped the ball on this. They didn't have fans in the stadium, but they didn't have protocol in place to make sure that players were being held accountable. And we saw what happened. We've had teams that basically have had to play multiple double headers, in 3 days. We've had teams that have had to postpone up to 10 games. This shit it's not the way that they planned it, and it's because, there wasn't enough protocol around it.
Most definitely. I think Seattle's place is domed too.
I think so too, and at the end of the day, what you need, maybe if you get 16 teams, right?
Right.
Because that's what you have, 16 teams at the end of the day. you really only need maybe 3 bubble cities, and you would likely want them to be within 500 to 1,000 miles of each other just to make it a little bit easy logistically. But at the end of the day, this isn't that huge of an undertaking, right? Like the basketball one was a huge undertaking because they had the regular season bubble playing, and then now they had the playoffs. But if you're the MLB, I mean, maybe do Houston's in Texas, do a couple of Florida ones, and maybe do one, maybe even have the Rodgers Center. That's fine. So I think that would be plenty sufficient for the 16 teams. And let's remember that it's not a play-in style anymore when it comes to the wild card, so there's more games. So I think it's necessary that we do get the bubble. The problem is, if you do the bubble, you do legitimately. Let's just put it this way. I would rather them tighten the protocol and leave the game the way that it is. Meaning, listen, we're going to go travel to New York for this game, but I need to make sure that every one of you guys is in the hotel room after and doesn't leave and isn't doing some stupid shit and isn't going out after the game or before the game or whatever, even on an off day. And if they can do that, I think you just do it the way that you're doing right now. Because, clearly, listen, knock on wood, nothing fatal has happened, right? Like, nobody has done anything too crazy as far as, like, losing their life or putting others in danger. I think, what Mike Clevenger did and the other dude in Cleveland, was boneheaded, but, all these people who say, they don't deserve to play, and Mike Clevenger is on the trade block now. Really good pitcher. I hate to say this because he's an Indian, but the dude is a tremendous pitcher, and apparently they're like, listen, if you want him, you can have him, because they just don't. The players in that locker room just aren't having it right now.
Yeah, I read about that, and then I even saw some rumblings about the Yankees trading Clint Frazier back to Cleveland for Mike Clevenger, and I was
huge.
I'd be pissed off if they pulled that.
That's a huge asking price for Clevenger.
Huge.
Frazier is a top 100 prospect for sure, and he's probably in the top 20 by now after all he's done in the majors. So, yeah, dude. Listen, at the end of the day, when you got the league doing, it's such a different game right now, right? The game is different, and everybody's trying to go all in for right now. I'm worried that a team like the White Sox maybe goes all in for right now and ruins next year for themselves. So there's going to have to be a balance to it.
Most definitely. So we'll keep an eye on these games as we keep going.
These are both tight games. It's going to be hard doing this and watching 2 tight games like this right now. So I'll be honest with you. As Jimmy Cordero's in, the White Sox are up 3-1, but they've got 2 men on and 1 man out, and the Yankees and the Mets are tied at 1, and it's the bottom of the 8th, 2 outs right now.
With Justin Wilson going against Mike Tauchman. So we'll get into. I want to quickly kind of get into the NHL. No, that's fine. All right, quickly get into the NHL as we have. We're down to the semifinals in the NHL, and one thing, if there's like one glaring that we probably saw in the last couple of days, might have been on Wednesday when the Tampa Bay Lightning absolutely Peter slapped the Boston Bruins all up and down the Canadian ice.
That's fun to see.
When they beat them like 7-1, and a lot of the talk was around the goalie situation in Boston. As we mentioned, Tuukka Rask decided to leave the Boston Bruins. It sounds like it was a family issue. He decided he wanted to leave, so as Yaroslav Halak was in the net. And I'm pretty sure there were plenty of Islander fans that are laughing because they've dealt with that for so long. But, boy, he looked terrible. Boston altogether looked terrible.
And that's Boston's fault for having him as a backup. Listen, every team in the league right now has carried 2 starting goalies, basically.
True.
And Boston is the only team that basically didn't. Let's get 2 here. Oh, my God. They got 2. Sorry, guys. The Golden Knights have 2 of the top 10 goalies in the league. I mean, I know Marc-Andre Fleury has had a really rough year this year, but they sat Marc-Andre Fleury over Robin Lehner, and I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury's people were pissed because I mean he's still a very good goalie.
Yes, he
so
is.
you got to be ready, and clearly Boston wasn't, and they lost again today 3-1. So looks like Tampa Bay is going to be moving. It's 3-1 right now in that series.
It's funny too because I last week was like, man, is there more overrated in the playoffs than the Tampa Bay Lightning? And then Tampa Bay Lightning
they showed up. But I mean, listen, I have a sneaky feeling that if I know the Islanders and the Flyers are both kind of, those are both teams that kind of flew under the radar going in, but like the way that the Flyers play and the way that the Islanders play, it directly goes against Tampa Bay's high flying sort of nature, right? So it's a good matchup for whoever goes up against them. But who knows, man? Tampa Bay, they are stacked. I mean, their top 3 lines, their forwards are all. Let's just say they've got guys who could play on the top line for some teams that are playing on their 3rd and 4th line.
Facts.
So Tampa Bay is deep, and listen, they've been there before, right? We mentioned they've lost in early rounds, they've lost in the late rounds, they've lost in the Stanley Cup final. So this is a team that's been around at around this time of the year. Maybe it did take them losing a couple of times to understand what it's like to play in postseason hockey, but. Yeah, they've made it clear that Boston's probably not going to be the team that does it for them this year.
The Yankees have brought in Aroldis Chapman here in the 9th. So let's see if you could just trust the fastball and just throw the heat, dude. First of all, you're going against Billy Hamilton, who's eating a whopping .048.
You just got to, with Billy, dude, you just got to put the ball on directly. You just put it in the strike zone. He's not going to do anything terrible. Like he's not gonna kill you with mistakes. So just put the ball over the freaking plate and just throw strikes against him.
Seriously, dude. I remember when Billy Hamilton was kind of like, I don't want to say like the next great hype or anything, but they're like, oh my God, look at Billy Hamilton scored off of a single and he was on force and this and that. I'm like, the speed's great if you can't. I mean, the speed don't mean nothing if you can't get on base.
I mean, and let's be honest. This just shows how much the game has changed over the last like 5 years. Because remember when Billy Hamilton was in Cincinnati, everyone's like, oh my God, he could, he's one of the fastest people in the league. And now you look around and it's like every team has like 3 or 4 Billy Hamiltons now. I mean, the White Sox have Luis Robert, who basically is as fast as Billy Hamilton, but can, has 5 tools instead. So it used to be that like, oh my God, this guy's so fast. And now it's like, hey, we've got like 5 guys who can run like that on the bench right now. So Billy Hamilton, and he's had a rough go of it. I mean, he's had teams that took flyers on him over the last few years, and they both said, "Yeah, we're good." And the Mets cleaned up after that and got him in. Let's be honest, though. I mean, the Mets could use him for sure with what they've going on in the outfield.
They're like those teams are like, I think we're good paying this guy $2 million to hit a $1.25.
$1.25, and when he gets on base, maybe he'll do something special for you. Is
that gone?
No, Tim Anderson into the gap, and that's a double, leadoff double for the bottom of the 5th. We need some insurance runs here because Alex Colomé has not been the greatest out of the bullpen, and that's another one. I mean, we may listen when it's all said and done. I know Boston's already starting to unload and just say, here, take what we can take what we can get. But once teams start dropping out of the picture, I would be interested to see what type of closers or what type of back end bullpen guys will be available, because I imagine the price will be very high for them this year.
The Boston Red Sox to me are hilarious. You know how people who play the show would know what I'm talking about. But if you play the show and you're playing like in career mode or my player mode or whatever, and you're in the American League, specifically in the East, I swear to God, the one team in the East that always falls off in 2 to 3 years and are completely ass is the Boston Red Sox. And I feel like that they're starting to hit that dude. You want to talk about this is the prime example of teams that went all in to get that one World Series. You got to get that. You got to go in there and get that one World Series, man. That's what it's all about. and then you're not squat for the next 4 or 5 years, and that's kind of where the Red Sox are.
They've done that like 3 times in the last 5 years. Remember, they had that terrible year, and then the next year they went to the World Series.
They did once under John Farrell, and then when they fired him, in came Alex Cora, and then they went all in with Alex Cora, and then they ended up winning the whole thing. And then last year,
ooh,
nice play, Estrada. And then last year, what did they come up? Came up short against. They didn't even make the playoffs last year. Excuse me. But they went all in the previous year. Yeah. Last year they weren't as good. Chris Sale isn't the same pitcher.
Oh my God, poor guy. Yeah.
Now to come to find out, he needed Tommy John surgery.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, dude. It's just an entire mess. So
listen, as a White Sox fan, you saw that coming. The way that Chris Sale pitches, his motions, it's like his shoulder's gonna fly off the rest of his body every single time he throws a ball. So people want to talk shit about the White Sox for the package that they got back from him. Listen, Yoan Moncada is one of the best young third basemen in the league. Michael Kopech, even though he hasn't he hasn't seen the field.
Ooh.
Was that a headshot?
No, it was definitely a rib shot, but that's gonna a hip shot, but that's gonna hurt. Dude, Roldis just rocked J.D. Davis with a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, yanked it in, and there was no way he was getting out of that.
Just the way he looks right now.
I know that hurt.
Even Roldis is like, sorry, bro. He looked at him like
you almost want him to go up to him like, hey, bro, you okay? That's my
good,
bad.
Man,
it got away from me, bro. It got away from me.
Oh, man.
I know that hurt.
Yeah, he's walking it off right now.
He a bigger G than me. I'd have been like, never mind, man.
No, I'm good, bro. Yeah, I'm about to retire after that one. Yeah.
Pinch runner.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Oh, no.
Ding, right in the hip.
Ouch. And that ball trajectory tells you everything you need to know. That went off of, right at the bottom of the rib cage. Ouch.
I'd have sold that. Speaking of selling moves, I saw that not to totally go off script.
Yeah.
But I totally saw Roman Reigns came back at SummerSlam last week.
Uh-huh.
And he was wearing a shirt that said wreck everything and leave. And I was like, dude, what kind of BS? If that's not a Stone Cold Steve Austin rip-off shirt when Stone Cold used to have the shirt that said raise hell and leave.
Leave, yeah.
But then to be PG with the same message, you come in, wreck everything and leave.
Raise heck.
Exactly, dude.
Might as well have said that.
And it's like the WWE are like slowly but surely trying to get into that attitude era without all the attitudeness. Yeah. But they're still dropping, USA. I don't know if anyone's been watching USA lately, but USA might as well be one of the movie channels. Yeah. We learned in school, as a matter of fact, that, to be honest with you, you can cuss on cable TV.
Yeah.
Because cable TV, it's like Sirius XM satellite. You have to pay to get that.
Right.
So, and this was at the time before they went all digital when you had 32, 50, 44, the analog channels.
Yeah.
You can cuss.
Mm-hmm. You just hear from the FCC. Yeah.
Right. It was just like no one really wanted to test the FCC with it, though. USA has been testing. I watched John Wick the other day. I mean, cussing all up through that movie. And I looked, I was like, is this USA that's on? And it is.
And if you don't have a problem with that, why do you have a problem with it in wrestling?
And that's why I brought that up, because they've dropped a few ass bombs. Drew McIntyre called Randy Orton a prick before on their before their SummerSlam match. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so are you really trying to move up this? Are we really trying to do this again?
Yeah. But let's be honest about what it is though with the WWE. They're losing money hand over fist right now.
Big time.
And it's been really bad without fans. I mean, the amount of TV money that the NBA makes, that the MLB makes, even the UFC, and sponsorship, it makes it okay for them to not have fans. But not having fans for the WWE is detrimental to their whole business model. And that's why, I don't know if you guys remember, but when shit hit the fan and everybody in this country was like, what the fuck? Florida was like, yeah, but wrestling is an essential business, so y'all can still come down here and do your shows here. And that was a month after the epidemic hit. So that just showed that Vince McMahon and the powers that be at the WWE had a very vested stake in making sure that fans stayed in there. And once that happened, I mean, we saw it. They let go of a ton of wrestlers, a ton of talent, a lot of people operationally. A lot of people who were working in Connecticut for 20, 30 years are now, jobless. So the WWE is losing money hand over fist right now, and the real issue around that is that you can't recover that over the next 3 or 4 or 5 months.
Right.
So who knows what they're trying to do? I know that personally. I obviously haven't watched a ton of wrestling lately, but personally speaking, I watched some of the product at the WrestleManias and the SummerSlam and some of the sort of the movie-esque type of stuff that they've tried, the production that they've tried, and I think it flies right over our heads as real wrestling fans when you look at, Undertaker falling into the pit, and then the double shot, and then the switch, and then the theatrical sort of switch. It didn't do it for me. I mean, right. I just, and even like my dad's a very old school guy. Not really into the theatrics or the CGI, or he was mentioning the Randy Orton and Edge match, the one that ended up on the top of the trailer,
yep.
And just talking about how they didn't have to do the production in that match. They could have left it the way it was, made it more organic. Even the ending with him hitting him with the chair on top of the head was so heavily produced. You could tell that was a match that was happening, and then they would go, all right, hold on, stop. And the wrestler would stop, and they'd be in the middle of wrestling, and they're like, let's get the camera over here, and let's make sure that we get this view on this. And it's like, that's not wrestling. That's not wrestling.
And on top of that, I didn't really watch that much WrestleMania. I did catch the Undertaker AJ Styles match, and I caught another match because I remember Tampa was saying, look, you guys can keep doing it if you want to.
Sure, yeah, come on.
Vince McMahon and the city of Tampa were basically forced to not have that WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Because like you said, Vince McMahon knew that there was millions of dollars that was going to be lost. The city of Tampa knew that there was going to be millions of dollars that were going to be lost. But due to the pressures and everything, they didn't do it.
Right.
And for what it's worth, WrestleMania just wasn't WrestleMania. It was two guys wrestling in the ring with no fans. It took all the momentum away from Drew McIntyre winning the championship. I mean, yeah, you had the theatricals, but you had to almost lean on that to make a decent show, as Kansas City just made it 3-2. It's just I don't know. It was hard to watch. I think that this little Thunderdome thing that they're doing is decent. They're just going to have to, at some point, they're going to have to control it on what pictures get up there, because some people I saw put pictures of Chris Benoit on the Thunderdome, and we know how sensitive the WWE.
Yeah.
The WWE is so sensitive about Chris Benoit that I totally forgot that I couldn't. One of my favorite SummerSlams was when Randy Orton won his first ever World Heavyweight Championship against Chris Benoit. But they wouldn't even mention his name. I could have thought it was 2004, and I was looking at the description, and I didn't see Chris Benoit's name, so I went to 2005. I was like, no, this is not it. I went to 2003, and I'm like, no, this is still the Attitude Era. This is not it. I'm like, I'm missing it. Where is it? So I actually had to go out and Google it, and it told me it was 2004, and I looked at the description again, and they totally took his name out.
Wow.
It said, Randy Orton challenges for the World Heavyweight title. Bitch, against who?
Yeah, and the worst part about that is after watching that documentary on, I think it was Beneath the Mat or Below the Mat or something I showed, it's on Viceland, it's very clear that wasn't because of what Chris Benoit did. That was because the WWE or the WWF is very scared about their role in what happened with that, because they were feeding this dude pills like it was candy, people, his buddies and people from the WWE, shooting steroids in him, in the locker room, and the way that they handled things in that era was very sketchy. So, that's a ticking time bomb in this day and age where it's all about gotcha journalism now. It's about like, ooh, we finally got them where we want them, and now we're gonna crush them now. And the WWE is at risk with that, as the Yankees get a leadoff walk-off Dylan Betances.
It's Dark Side of the Ring is what you're thinking.
Dark Side of the Ring. There you go. Yeah, and very, very amazing series. But you started to see clearly Chris Benoit. I mean, listen, CTE has a huge part in that, right? Mm-hmm. We can't deny that. But the acceleration of it with the steroids and the painkillers, the opiates, the alcohol, the weed, I'm sure, all of this stuff combined, and on top of that, you've got a guy who gets hit in the head for a living. So these are all things that the WWE doesn't want to acknowledge. It's going to be one of these exposés in the next couple of years where it shows, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson comes out and says that he was fed pills like candy, and same thing that the Brian Urlachers of the league and all these people from old school NFL have told you, dude, we used to go into the locker room and they used to be like, hey, there's a jar full of opiates right there, just grab a handful and we'll see you tomorrow, and that was it for them. So they're gonna bust that wide open soon.
Derek asked, what are your predictions for Payback? I ain't gonna lie, dude, I really don't have any. It's gonna be hard for me to watch. I hate the fact that you have a pay-per-view 2 weeks after your major pay-per-view. Why? Can we get a storyline to build up? Like, I'm not ready to watch Payback, so I don't really have any predictions. He said that's why AEW is bomb, but Stan says AEW sucks. I'm actually kind of with Stan on that one. I'm not a fan. Dude, they named Jon Moxley, a.k.a. Dean Ambrose, PWI, Pro Wrestling Insider, named him the number one wrestler of whatever this last year is, and I was like, this has to be a joke. This has to be a joke too. I think Jon Moxley sucks. I've never been a fan of him when he was in the WWE as Dean Ambrose, and the reason why I never liked him is because he is a no-selling POS. He sells no moves. When he was wrestling or battling Triple H for the WWE title, kind of before Roman Reigns came back to win it at WrestleMania, Triple H hit Jon Moxley or Dean Ambrose with the pedigree, sold it. He hit him with it. Within 3 minutes, he was moving to stand back up. That's not how finishers work, bro.
And wrestlers hate that too. It's
yes.
like, listen, dude, you're taking away half of what this game is by not selling moves.
Yes. And it's like garbage. Stan asked, is CM Punk coming back? Doubt it. He's getting paid by the WWE to kind of be on
like a story,
the behind the scenes, the little talk shows that they have. But I don't see CM Punk ever getting back in the ring. But I think with Chris Benoit, to go back to the Chris Benoit thing real quick before we head into the NBA, is that also we're going to be previewing two divisions today. We're going to preview the NFC North and West, and then next week we'll finish with the South. But I think with Chris Benoit, I think when Eddie died, that was the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. And that was a great thing about that documentary, is it showed the timeline of how close Eddie and Chris got.
Yep.
And then when Eddie was lost, and let's remember there is some shadiness with Eddie too, right? I mean, Eddie, he didn't have the craziness of killing his wife and kid, but when they found him, a lot of the speculation was like, what is going on here? Is this drug related? Is this alcohol related? And there's still some ambiguity about what the hell happened there. And clearly Chris was never the same after that. And even Eddie Guerrero's wife attested to that, saying, it was tough seeing Chris after that, and he just didn't seem like the same person. And again, listen, when you're getting hit in the head 50 times a night for 25 years and you're having to take opiates, you're probably drinking, getting blacked out every single night just to make sure you can get to bed. A lot of these guys, they end up having career-long illnesses when it comes to, what a play in right field. So yeah, you're seeing everything kind of play out in front of you. And when Chris Benoit went, it was very obvious that the WWE was like, listen, we're gonna cut ties with this guy, and we're gonna make it seem like it was because we didn't fuck with the fact that he, killed his.
That's fair. Go Clint. Go Clint.
And he was
You're rounding third.
3-2. And okay.
Did they hold him up at 3?
Yeah.
Ah!
And he was running.
He was running. What are you doing, Phil Nevin?
3-2. And Betances
Dude,
now.
it's Betances, bro.
First and
we
third.
know about Betances. We know about Betances.
First and third with
How
one
is that?
out.
All right, let me see where he caught it.
He was in.
Okay. It's legit. It's legit.
I mean, he probably would have been out.
He would have been out by a mile. Okay, yeah. I'm tweaking because I just need the Yankees to flip and win this damn game.
But yeah, Sack Fly now gets you a dub in this one as Betances. Listen, Betances, we know what he is. He's not a closer. He's
not the same pitcher he was before the Achilles tear, bro.
No. He's a guy you bring in the 7th now. You could bring him in the 7th and get away with some high leverage situations. But yeah, this is not even a save situation. It's a hold situation, and not looking too good for him so far.
Are they taking him out? Oh no, I guess they were just talking to him.
Meeting at the mound.
Because technically, that's his third. That would have been his third batter.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, and this new 3 batter 1 inning rule
is stupid too.
Yeah,
it takes the strategy out, dude.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Why even do lefty righty in your lineup anymore when you know late in the game? I mean, does it really? When you're facing a righty, right? The incentive should be just stack your lineup with lefties, but the conventional wisdom is, well, let's throw some righties in there to throw them off just in case. It doesn't matter anymore because they're going to come in late in the game, and if they're bringing in a lefty, he has to stay in for a whole inning or for 3 batters. So you're going to be able to make the moves you want anyway. So yeah, that's one of the rules that I don't know what's going to happen next year.
He threw it over his head,
and it's What a DM Betances.
Thank Christ! The streak is over! Start spreading the news! I'm leaving today! I want to be a part of it! New York! Thank God! Because if I have to hear one more Rays fan talk about us losing, I'm raising hell. God bless.
And Dylan Betances, man, that wasn't even close. That was
and now the Mets see why the Yankees got rid of him.
That was 2 feet above the catcher's head. That was 2 feet above the catcher's head. That wasn't even close. And whatever the pitching coach told Betances didn't work. Let's just say that. I mean, they're going for the squeeze, and that probably would have worked in that situation too, even if it was a good pitch. So, all right, Yankees win. Now we just need the White Sox to take care of business. They're up 3-2 in the bottom of the 6th.
Look, the Yankees have been losing so much they don't even know how to celebrate.
It's also, dude, the walk-offs now. The MLB's one of the things that they said was, let's try and keep spacing during the walk-offs. Listen, dude, if I'm around somebody for 12 hours of the day.
I know that's right.
And I'm in the clubhouse with them. And I'm in the, I'm sharing the same bathroom as them. I'm in the fucking dugout for 4 hours with them. Do you think that celebrating a little bit closer to somebody for 20 minutes at the end of a night is going to be the deciding factor? That's what I'm saying. Listen, we don't know enough about this shit to really be talking like we do, right, as far as the corona stuff is concerned. But I do know that, listen, I'm not stupid enough to believe that if we socially distance during walk-offs, it's going to make us safer. No, dude, listen, the risk is there no matter what. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of that either. And honestly, I mean, baseball is already talking about, well, maybe we should start looking at, bubbles for next year. Dude, I feel like that's a crazy leap to make, man. It's as crazy as some of these NFL teams who are saying, well, we're going to have 5,000 people in our stadium. Why? For what? To try and gain back a little bit of what you lost?
That's
dude,
exactly what it is.
Just go through the season without fans, and let's make sure that next year we're all set up. Like, I guess it's easy to say from the outsider's perspective, but it's like, what are we gaining at the end of the day by having 5? And the Packers saying, well, we're not going to have it for the first half, but we're not going to rule it out for the second half. Why not?
The Cardinals said the same thing where they were like, the first 2 games, they're not going to have fans, but towards the end of the season, they're, quote, not going to rule it out.
As if timing is the issue here, right? Like, me and Steve were just talking about it before the show. People have this idea that timing has anything to do with this whole situation, as if to say, like, after December, everything's going to be good. You know, we're going to be good after December. How do you know?
As a conspiracy theorist, when do the voting end?
End of November. That's when they're going to be like, all right,
that's why
back to normal.
That's why everyone's saying December. Okay.
No, you're right. You're right, though. You're right.
I don't mean to go all. It's not even political.
We need it.
I'm going conspiracy theory on everybody.
Yes, please.
Some tells me that if D Trizzle, El Presidente D Trizzle, is not in office, is not voted in office,
things are going to go too good. Things are going to go too good.
Watch, the Rona will slowly disappear.
Yeah,
that's just a conspiracy in me. Don't take anything that
and you know what they're going to say, though? They're going to say, well, I mean, Joe did a tremendous job. When he got in...
Let's talk. Let's talk. They going to make Joe Biden look like Jesus by the time this is over.
And then in January, when he's sworn in and everything like that, he's going to be like, you know, how did you do this, Joe? In one short month... The entire country is now back to normal. And it's going to be Joe like...
Because that's exactly how he talks. And on top of that, this is all I'm saying. All I'm saying is, during the whole pandemic, and no offense, I wish I could have done the same thing because I can't breathe in this stupid-ass mask for so long.
Yeah.
D. Trizzle ain't had not a one mask on his face. And
And remember how many people got exposed around him, too? Every week there was somebody new. Like, one of the people that was in a meeting with him for 2 hours was just tested positive. And it's like, oh, really?
So unless El Presidente D. Trizzle has a vaccination that we don't know about, this man hasn't been tested positive for squat.
But that's what they're saying is that I mean, clearly, listen, we're not new to this country. We know how this country works. The rich have the resources and the non-rich don't. And Donald Trump and his staff had daily tests that they could take within a few minutes. They get their results right then and there. Me and you didn't have the luxury of taking that test, right? We didn't have the luxury of having 14 of those tests to take every 2 weeks. We didn't. I had to go to I had to wait 2 weeks after having symptoms, and then they made me do a take your own test type shit. And I had to do it myself. And so, again, the halves...
You had to stick the thing up your nose?
I had to stick the thing up my nose by myself.
Hell no.
And then I had to break it off into a tube, and I had to put the tube in. And I'm telling the lady, like, hey, am I doing this right? And she's on the other side of the window, like, yeah, you're doing it fine. Like, you can't even see me right now. So, listen, dude, I don't want to be conspiracy to the max, but I agree. We never saw... Listen, the world was over this a month and a half ago. A month and a half ago, the world was like, oh, Corona, you guys are still doing that shit? Because we've been off that. I mean, fucking New Zealand had 5 cases in a day, and they were like, oh my God, shut the country down, da-da-da. And the funny thing is, D. Trizzle had the balls to say, well, they've got to figure things out over there. Motherfucker, they had 5 cases. 5. We've had 500,000 people in this country, and they had 5. So, listen, I don't want to get too, but that ties into the whole NBA thing, too, because...
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, because the NBA thing, I mean, you and I both said it on the show. We want to see action, right? We don't want to see everybody wear the Black Lives Matter shirts and the kneeling and then this and then that. And then when it comes down to it, they're not doing what they need to do to further the agenda. What I saw over the week was, quite frankly, a divided league. Okay, that. Let's be honest. LeBron by now has assigned himself as the de facto leader of the league, right?
Swear to God, he has.
And let's be honest, not a lot of the league is okay with that.
No.
You know, a lot of the teams are like, well, he was, to give people the timeline, essentially, Jacob Blake, another unarmed black man, was killed for being non-compliant with officers. Oh, I'm sorry, paralyzed. Excuse me. Paralyzed from being non-compliant with officers. Shot 7 times in the back. And essentially, this happened a day and a half, 2 days before the Bucs were getting ready to play Orlando.
Yep.
And the Bucs basically decided to sit out the game. Now, the Bucs, I mean, being close, the fact that it happened in Kenosha and the Bucs are in Wisconsin, it was very personal. And I think, the idea was well-intentioned, and they basically said, listen, we don't want to play this game. Now, the rest of the league was a little bit taken aback because there was already games on the schedule, and they had not been notified about the Bucs pulling out.
Right.
I think LeBron was one of the first people to say we would have appreciated if the Bucs would have basically came to the rest of the players and said, this is what we're going to do, and hey, let's do this in solidarity. I think that was LeBron's point in my mind.
Right.
Now, a lot of the league is mad at LeBron right now because he was one of the sort of the first people to come out and say, I don't like the way the Bucs went about it. And the Bucs, apparently they had a all closed door meeting with basically all the players in the league, and the consensus was that a lot of people were upset that LeBron was sort of taking on this very leader role when a lot of people were like, listen, dude, we're a big league. We're not a monolith. We do have different views on this and everything like that. And Kyrie was a perfect example of it, right? Kyrie, before the season even happened, said, listen, I'm not with this shit. I don't think this is right. So basically the Bucs sat out the game. And I think that put pressure on other teams, too, as well. I think other teams were like, what, you're going to make us look like fucking assholes if we go out and play this game, too? So, they basically, we had a 3-game, what do you want to call it, boycott?
Yeah, I would say a boycott.
Work stoppage, maybe. But this
work stoppage, that's a good one.
Yeah, and these teams basically said, they tried to do damage control and said these games are postponed. And then the players came out and said, no, we're not playing these games, right? So first things first, I want to get this off the bat. I respect what the players did. I think that I would be a hypocrite to say, hey, I'm about policy, I'm about action, and you guys aren't taking action, and then criticize them when they take action. So I respect what the players did, but there's a lot of backlash about it right now.
Yeah, most definitely. And I love how we as a country always use money as this issue and why someone can and can't do something. You know what I'm saying? Like I love, and it for whatever reason is always on my Facebook, where I love when people are like, well, I can't go to my job and say that, I'm having an issue with some of these social things because I'd get fired.
You're not on TV, motherfucker.
Then go find another job.
Yeah. And
you feel what I'm saying? Yeah, think about it. For some reason, America seems to be the one country where money, every time, like everyone thinks that because you make millions of dollars that you should just sit down and shut up
be grateful,
and just be grateful you make millions of dollars, because us that's only making $15 to like $25 an hour could only wish that we could make $20 million a year just hitting a baseball. Okay, well, let's stop right there. It's the same jackasses that sit here and get mad at everyone and say, you can't accept $2 million less, you would go to that team over there for 7 and you could have stayed faithful for 5.
Yeah.
But we're the same people who in our lives, I could stay at a job making $13 an hour, but if someone came behind me and said, hey man, I'll pay you $25, do the same thing, I'd be an idiot not to take it.
If I get a call tomorrow that says I'm getting $10K more a year, I'm saying peace to my God.
I'm out.
Yeah.
So we do the same exact thing with less money, but as soon as you see all the money that comes into it, all of a sudden it's
greed.
They're greedy.
Yeah.
They make so much money.
Ungrateful.
I wish they're ungrateful. This and that. But take everyone's money aside, they bleed the same red that we do. They have a right to say exactly what we do. You may not agree. Obviously the country's at war about this kid going out shooting the AR-15 and whatever, however he got up there, whatever he did, whatever. The fact of the matter is a bunch of human beings decided to use their platform, decided that enough was enough, and with all the fighting and stuff that went on, Doc Rivers said it best, that the NBA and everybody just needed to take a breath.
Yeah.
And just needed to relax. Because if the NBA, and here's what sucks about sports sometimes is that, people expect sports to separate the sports aspect from
humanity.
The humanity aspect.
Yeah.
So when you go on some of these forums or these Facebook pages and you see what some of these people be saying, it drives me up a wall because somebody will be like, oh, well, I don't care about what's going on in Wisconsin. I care about the Philadelphia Flyers, and that's bull that they would go off the game because it doesn't matter to me. But they're human beings, and it still matters to them.
Yeah, they're not allowed to have.
Think about it. You just went damn near 7-8 months with no Philadelphia Flyer hockey. I'm pretty sure another day is not going to break your face with everything that's going on. Because I commend the NHL the most on this. Because think about it. The NHL really only has, about maybe 10 black players, if not a few more than that. But think about it. Those 10 black players, especially being led by Evander Kane, said, you know what? We're going to be in solidarity. And I tell you what, please go on some of them Facebook forums because those people who are deciding that, how come the NHL has to do this because they were mad as hell. And I was like, congrats to the NHL. They was like, look, man, we may not have as many black people in the sports like baseball and basketball do, but from the humanity, Brad Marchand came out and said, hey, all y'all stick to sports people need to shut your flipping mouths.
Yeah.
Even Brad Marchand.
Yeah.
So Brad Marchand on the Boston Bruins, that could be, they're down 3-1. Could be on the road to a Stanley Cup championship. Yeah. If this man is coming out saying, shut your mouth, shut your mouth.
Shut your mouth, yeah. And let's be honest, Nick. This is the elephant in the room. It's not going to take people like you and I going out there and spreading this message.
Right.
It's going to take people like Brad Marchand. It's going to take these people who aren't affected by this to stand up and say something. And that's what I'm proud of with what's happening throughout all the garbage that's happening with the vitriol that's being spewed at them. They're still turning pages and making progress with people that you normally wouldn't be able to do that with.
Exactly.
And I think that's important.
Because remember when this whole kneeling stuff started years ago?
Oh my God.
It was the great John Benson says you're right, the sports forums were unbelievable, so hateful. Hateful as hell.
Yeah.
It was disgusting.
Yeah.
Like I almost was this close from deactivating my Facebook, and then I was like, you know what? I just won't go on here unless it has to really do with the show
and that's just
or
Facebook,
the Yankees sucking.
But that's just Facebook comments in general, dude.
Man,
you can't get bogged down in thinking that's the world, right?
Disgusting.
Yeah, it's really bad. And let's also be honest about what it is, Nick. It's a huge double standard across the board. Mm-hmm. The double standard starts and ends with what we're talking about here, the issues that we're talking about. Non-compliance from Jacob Blake was a death sentence for him. For many other people, that would not be a death sentence. That would not be 7 shots in the back. And that is the double standard.
And Mack, you just described what Black Lives Matter is supposed to mean. See, that's what and once again, I know this is a sports show, but with everything going on, I've had this on my heart for a long time. But one of the reasons why I need to go ahead and get this off now is because somewhere in the midst of everything that's going on, the whole Black Lives Matters thing has kind of been lost in the ruins. So maybe let me take about 5 minutes to kind of bring back what it meant. Black Lives Matter, this whole all lives matter stuff, to me is all stupid. I'm going to tell you why. Because no one never said that all y'all lives don't matter. All I'm trying to say is when I get pulled over by the police, like I was a couple weeks ago when a cop almost hit my car and thought it was my fault, I want the same respect that white people, Hispanic people, Asian people, Middle Eastern people get. I want that same respect.
Yeah.
That's why I say Black Lives Matter. Because when I see a video of a white guy wielding a knife at cops and they're yelling at him, put the knife down, and they're tasing him so that his life could matter later on, maybe he could get rehabilitation. It's the same thing you should have done to Jacob Blake over here, but instead you got scared and shot him 7 times because of a knife that you saw in his car. Come on, man.
And let's be honest about what it is at the end of the day. Cops, the reason why people are talking about defund the police at this point is because you can't make an apple unrotten. You can't take something that at its core is rotten and try and make it fresh, right? So what we're talking about is a group, the police, that in its infancy stages were slave catchers. And it turned into, okay, now they're going to monitor our cities, but let's remember, black people were still subhuman back then. Black people were still seen as all of these tropes that we've heard for the last 20 years now, and it's still in the zeitgeist that black people are dangerous, black men are dangerous. Oh, if he's non-compliant, he's on PCP, he's gonna kill you. I mean, just the crazy things that you read about, what would go through your head as a black man. I mean, listen, I've been discriminated against, and I've had stuff happen to me, but can anybody ever pretend to be in the shoes of a black person or any sort of black man specifically in the eyes of the police? They are constantly going to be seen as threats. And let's remember what police are. They're there to protect our citizens. Let's just boil it down to its absolute the consistency of what we're talking about is police at its core is there to protect and serve. Very simply put, the over-policed areas of our world are the worst off for it. Meaning, if you go to Naperville, if you go to Burr Ridge, if you go to some of these really nice areas that are not too far from us, there's not a lot of police there. The reason for that is because they're not over-policing over there. People still do drugs in Burr Ridge.
Oh, most
people still get super drunk and belligerent in Naperville. People still resist arrest and all sorts of crazy shit in these nice areas. The problem is they're not seen as combatants. Mm-hmm. They're not seen as these people we have to fight with. And what happens is, I think the idea is that at its core, we just want it to be equal for everyone. Right. We want everyone to have the same opportunity. I don't want to see a video of a white man who's naked, clearly on drugs, and running around with a knife and trying to stab police from the same police department that just shot Jacob Blake in the back 7 times.
Exactly.
We don't want to see that anymore. And, all the people who are reaching and saying, well, look at his criminal history. Look at this. Look at that. Why wasn't he compliant? Why wasn't this? Listen, dude, if you want to have that conversation, I'm more than willing to have that conversation with somebody. First of all, non-compliance to the police is not a reason to kill somebody. So, I understand when people say, well, we want people to be compliant with police. Yeah, in a perfect world, that's true. But when you have people who are distrustful of police the way that they are right now, distrustful of the system the way that they are right now, it's hard to blame somebody, especially a black man, for not wanting to be in the hands of police. So that's tough.
And let me say this, because the one guy that I've really been very disappointed in, but he seems to keep getting all this press, is the police chief in Dallas, the black guy.
Yeah, the conservative.
Let me say this. I've been on the fence about this whole defunding the police thing. Like, I don't think defunding the police is the answer. My problem is when you clearly see that there might be a problem, but you want to clearly make it seem like it's society's fault, I have a problem with that. I'm not saying that society ain't knuckleheads. You know, when you be watching like live PD and you get them guys that get pulled over, they ain't got no license, but they're a traveler, those kind of guys. I'm not saying that people that think they're
sovereign
above
citizens.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that those guys are crazy and they whatever the case is. Yeah, society's real messed up. But you can't keep telling me that every time a cop shoots a citizen, especially a black citizen, it was justified and it was our fault. Because it's funny that you talk about what happened with Jacob Blake, but you still seem kind of silent about what happened to Breonna Taylor, with the whole world having her back, trying to find out how come we're allowed to just bust in people's house and shoot them while they sleep, and you can't tell me who's coming into my house? And, come on, man, that's crazy,
And
dude.
It's funny because when you have the conversation with them, it's as if Jacob Blake was the first person ever to be shot by the police, first black person ever.
Right.
And it's like, bro, we're talking about an issue that's been happening for hundreds of years. Listen, it's going to go through one ear and out the other until we have conversations with each other about it. I think you have to have uncomfortable conversations with your friends who do have these crazy point of views. And, you know, even people who tell me, listen, I don't want to correct you because you didn't say anything wrong, but I want to be clear about what defund the police is, guys. And this goes back to what the name Black Lives Matter, right? I think I've said this before. When you have this very complex movement with different intricate parts of it, and you boil it down to Black Lives Matter, it makes it an easy target, right? It makes it to say, well, what about my life? I'm not black. What is my life? You know, that's what it turned. So defund the police is also turned into that too, because when you say defund the police, I think the thought process is take all the money from the police.
Yes.
And that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that the police shouldn't be doing social workers' job. They should not be doing a paramedic's job. They should not be doing a traffic patroller's job.
They shouldn't be judge, jury, and executioner as well.
And listen, I'm willing to concede to people that police, their scope is too big right now. You can't be also patrolling the streets, but then you're getting calls for here about domestic disputes, and you're getting calls about a mentally ill person. These are tough situations. So when we talk about defunding the police, Nick, do you think that the Chicago Police Department deserves 40% of our total budget for the city that goes to our social services, that goes to our schools, that goes to our kids, that goes to our community? I mean, I'm sorry, guys. We as a country have this crazy thought process that we you know, all these people who think that the government's going to come and take your guns and your government's going to come in. And it's funny because most of them come from the right, but they don't have the presence of mind to understand that it's already happened. We have a militarized police out on the streets in unmarked vans pulling citizens of this country in and running away with them. This isn't just something that is theoretical anymore. So at the end of the day, have to have the tough conversations. And one of those tough conversations is, listen, defund the police doesn't mean take away all 40%. You know what it means? It means, hey, what do you need to make this happen? Okay, 25%. Let's give them 25%. And let's take that other 15%. Let's put it towards community services. Let's make sure kids are off the streets after schools. Let's make sure that, you know, we have a better educational system, better after school programs. Let's make sure that, you know what? How about this? Instead of, because police have such a problem with mentally ill people, because let's be honest, most of the people that they victimize are mentally ill or somehow have some mental instabilities. Let's get social workers in there. Let's empower social workers to be able, because I'll tell you what, my ex-girlfriend was a social worker, and she told me that she's had people who pulled knives on her. She's had people who were a foot away from her and telling her they're gonna slit her neck, and she is trained to de-escalate, and that's what police are also trained to do. So what we're saying is, we're giving you 40% of our budget. You're taking all of our money for this city, and yet you are still victimizing the citizens that you're sworn in to protect. Something's wrong with that. And we have to have tough conversations. And again, I don't want to harp too much on it because we've already gotten into it, but the NBA, I think it was a lose-lose for them, Nick. If they continued to play, you would have got everybody talking shit about how, you guys want to wear Black Lives Matter on the shirts, and then if they go on, because now they're already getting shit for resuming today, and it's like, listen, dude, I mean, I understand where they're coming from. We've already made our point here, and second of all, I mean, we're weakening ourselves by not playing here. We're losing our platform. We're losing our money. You know, I'm happy that they're holding owners more accountable. I think that's important. I think owners need to be more accountable. Not just here's $20,000. It has to be, hey, let's find systemic change and let's make it happen. And I think the players are doing it as disjointed as it is, because it is disjointed right now. I have to commend them and say that they've done as good of a job as they could have.
Exactly. And you know what? And that we won't get into it yet, but Bruce Arians said something, and some people looked at it as foot to mouth, and some people actually agreed. He was like, basically, he said like protesting is okay, but it doesn't do crap unless there's action. Mm-hmm. Like, you can go out on the streets and scream all you want, but if you're not going to do anything, then what are you screaming about?
Yeah.
And to an extent, I kind of agree. It's like, okay, we got the awareness now. So what do we now do to make things better now?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? And it's like I'm not, and I want people to think, oh, Nick, that's your football head coach, blah, blah, blah. I don't care who he is. Bruce Arians, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to this stuff right here, it's just a man. Yeah, I know now you know how I feel.
Yeah, White Sox now down 4-3 after being up 3-2 at the start of the inning. And also, Nick, before, because I know I don't want to harp too much on this as it is as well, but, when we talk about the issues that are happening in this country, I think it's just time for us as Americans to realize that around 30 to 40% of this country is not going to see this. They're not going to see it our way. No. They're not going to ever be able to check themselves and look in the mirror and understand the privilege that they have, and the dichotomy and just a complete lack of consistency when it comes to our country. When we have people who are, running around with, when you have a 17-year-old white kid who can walk around with an illegal rifle, have it open carry, walk past the police give him water, the police commend him, give him a thumbs up and say, thanks for protecting us. Then you also have now a person who is paralyzed because of the threat of maybe having a weapon. We have a real huge issue on our hands here. And, you've got people defending a 17-year-old who drove from Antioch, Illinois. His mom dropped him off, and he killed 2 people that night. And he shot another person in the arm. And he was doing it because 30 to 40% of this country has encouraged him to do that and has told him that he is a hero for doing it. And when you tell a 17-year-old, who's been in these like junior academies, and he's been
these
militias, yeah, sure. But the problem is, you've got these far right people who are commending him. He's now become a somewhat of a hero in that type of community, and it just shows you the dichotomy of how half of this country is, and majority of this country, I would say, is grieving right now about what's happened over the last few months. And I think you still have this very large chunk of this country that's like proud of what's happened, and we just have to deal with that. We have to look in the mirror, dude. We live amongst these people. We've enabled this in people. When Donald Trump, won in 2016, it
was a wrap.
It was also a wrap because we didn't handle it as the other side. We didn't handle it the way we should have. We didn't go and extend out and reach out and see what their issue is. And clearly Donald Trump is a symptom of a larger sickness, right? He's a guy who
no.
Please stay in. Please stay in. Did he get it? Fuck! 3-run home run, Maikel Franco. And now he's pointing at, forgot who, I think it was Nomar Mazara that he had a little beef with earlier in the series. But any hoodles, clearly my team is on the road. It's the top of the 7th. There's still some time, but still 7-3 here. Royals, top of the 7th. What a bummer.
Yeah, but no, dude, I hear what you're saying, but it kind of all just led. We got to get that off the chest. Unfortunately, it's everything that's led into some of the stuff that's been going on. But like John said and I said earlier, dude, you look at some of these forums and these groups in Facebook, and I mean, I'm talking about it's just disgusting. So, but back to the NBA playoffs real quick. Sir. Right now, the Bucks are beating Orlando, 54-44. Some news. We all know about Black Panther.
Oh yeah, Chadwick Boseman.
died of colon cancer. But then you wake up this morning and you realize that former Portland Trailblazer Clifford Robertson died today at 53. Yeah. So it's just like, man, you know, that black Chadwick Boseman, I guess
he's had colon cancer for the last 5 years.
Yeah, they were saying that he had it. Yeah. Just never told anybody.
And the sad part is he became a meme over the last couple of years because he would post pictures and look not so good.
Right.
And the internet would just be savages and, you know, call him out and not knowing that this guy was sick. And it just shows you how cruel we can be as a society,
man,
you know.
I swear, man.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden You never would have thought that cyberbullying would ever got to the point to where it's at right now.
Yeah.
It almost is like, I almost don't even want the phone. Like, I'm going to have a phone, but it's almost like you don't even want to go on it anymore.
Yeah.
Because I have a friend that made a very similar point where everyone just assumed that he was on crack and he was on a drug addiction and he was this and that, and he became the I felt the same way about Whitney when she died. You remember, I mean, everybody know that Whitney Houston was one of the greatest singers in the world, but then she started dating Bobby Brown, and then she became the crackhead joke of the week every week leading up to her death. But then when she died, everybody, their mom was crying the blues. Oh, Whitney.
And why didn't we help her?
Why didn't we help her? But y'all was making fun of her for the last 3 years for being a crackhead.
Yeah.
Why didn't you help her then?
And
Same thing with Chadwick.
Yeah.
Everyone, oh, man, he looks like he made all that money off of Black Panther, and now he used it on crack, and this is what crackheads look like in the street, this and that. And now you realize that the man had colon cancer this whole time. So how stupid do you feel? Yeah. Man, keep your comments to yourself.
Yeah, I think the
How
worst
about that?
I think the worst part about what you just said, Nick, is I don't think those people feel anything. I don't think they are going to say, I was wrong for what I said about Chadwick. Because, listen, dude, the internet gives you the lack of account. This is what bothers me about the internet. And this is why I am a supporter of somebody, you know, who says some crazy shit online. If I bring that to the attention of your employer, that's your issue, sir.
Yep.
So, listen, this is my idea for the internet. You want to hear my idea for the new internet?
Yes.
Here's the new internet.
All right.
The new internet is you get to say whatever you want. Racist, bigoted, you get to say whatever you want on the internet. But we get to see your real name and where you live. And now we get to hold you accountable. Not to say I'm going to come and kill you, but what I'm saying is a lot of you motherfuckers are getting comfortable on the internet being anonymous. And you start to turn into this anonymous person who has lost accountability. It's something that happened with one of my, somebody I interned for at 6'7" The Score, Jason Goff, who notably lost his job at 6'7" The Score for speaking out about, police brutality. And he basically had a dude come up to him and basically say, what the fuck you gonna do? I'm gonna say all this stuff. You're not gonna do shit. So what did Jason do? He went and posted Homeboy's information. And what did I do? I went 100% petty and tagged his employers. And his employers reached out to me the next day and said, hey, sorry, we don't know who the hell this guy is, but thank you for bringing it to our attention. And I sent them the screenshots. I said, this dude's talking all sorts of mess, and he has himself as your CEO. And this is another, and let me be honest, this was a weed company, and this dude's talking about how black people are drug addicts and this and this and that. It's like, listen, man, what bothers me the most is that all these corporations making hundreds of millions of dollars on weed when for the last 50 years, weed has been the key to locking up underage and minors and minorities in this country. I mean, hundreds of millions of black people, Hispanics, and just non-white people in general have been victimized by the stigma of weed over the last 100 years. And now it's cool. And now you got white CEOs making millions of dollars, and they don't see it in their mind. They don't see the double standard. So, yeah, it's crazy to see the Chadwick Boseman stuff because, listen, man, life's short, man. We don't know when this shit's gonna end, and you just gotta be. And that's the worst part about Chadwick Boseman is he was visiting. He was. A lot of people were saying, well, he hasn't worked in a little while, and they noticed that he had another blooper hit. They noticed that he had been going to a lot of children's hospitals, and he had been visiting sick kids and being the Black Panther for sick kids. And now that he's been doing that because he knows he's sick and he has been just doing his best, and God bless him, and praying for his family at this point.
Most definitely. So we deal with that, but then another big news that came out was Kristaps Porzingis might miss the rest of the series against the Clippers. He has a torn meniscus in his knee, and as much as people don't want to admit it, I'm going to reserve judgment and see what the Knicks did with those picks from Dallas that they got in the Porzingis trade.
Because those are first, right?
I think one of them was a first. And at the end of the day, Kristaps is a great player, but even the Knicks saw that his durability, being a 7'3" guy away, he was really crashing that net and stuff like that. Man, that's not going to work. So another knee injury. Remember, he missed the whole season with the torn ACL, which led to him getting traded from New York to Dallas because there was so much beef on what direction the organization was going and this and that.
And then they had to put weight on him, remember? They had to put weight on him, and I think the weight was too much.
I think it's too much, especially putting weight on him after the fact that he tore his ACL.
Yeah.
So
he had rehabbed with a completely different body. Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. So
and let's be honest, I mean, Dallas, they're only in this series because of Luka's craziness. Like, he's just, Luka, I hope Atlanta, whoever in Atlanta who listened to Quavo and drafted Trae Young over Luka, I hope you live with that. Listen, I'm not saying Trae Young's garbage, but Trae Young is not on the level that Luka is on right now. Luka is I hate to say, a LeBron-like player. Take the athleticism out of it. The size, the vision, the ability to play different positions, the ability to guard different positions. He's not the most athletic guy. He's not even the greatest defender.
Right.
But when the ball's in his hands, there's very little you can do. He's going to find a way, and Dallas, let's be honest, has done a great job of surrounding him with the right type of talent. Boban's a perfect fit for that team. Seth Curry is a perfect fit for that team. Even Tim Hardaway Jr. I'm not a huge fan of him and his game in general, but for what they do, he works really well. So, and let's be honest, Kristaps, they were doing fine without him in the lineup, right? So he's just kind of a cherry on top. And if I were Dallas, dude, just sit him and let's make sure he's okay for next year.
Right. Exactly. So, but again, the Bucks are playing right now, and they have a 17-point lead going at halftime.
So much for the Magic winning Game 1, and everyone's like, "Oh, the Bucks are done." It's like
same thing with Portland.
Portland, yeah, and the Lakers have embarrassed in the last two or three games too. So, and I think am I right to say that Lillard's out of the bubble now, or did he just get on the injury report?
Who's that?
Damian Lillard.
Supposedly he's hurt.
Yeah, I was going to say he's hurt, but did he leave the bubble? Because if he left the bubble, it's over. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not sure if he left it or not.
Yeah, so because that's a huge part of this because they're going to need him. I mean, let's be honest. They run their whole game through him.
Right, exactly. So, well, guys, we're going to go ahead and get into these football previews. We got 2 of them to knock out today. We're going to start with the North.
Let's start on a Oh no, you know what? We could do it the traditional way because I want to do the Bears last for them.
We'll do Bears last.
Even though we're not going to assume they're going to be first in the division, but yeah, let's do the Bears last. I would like to start with the Lions because I think that's the one thing
that was definitely
agree on.
Happen.
Yeah. So Matt Patricia is year 2 now of the Matt Patricia era. No, year 3, actually.
Lucky to be in year 3.
Yes, lucky to be in year 3. And let's be honest, I mean, this is a crossroads for this organization in general this year. The Matt Stafford thing, is that going to stick? Are we, same way we talked about, remember last year around this time, or not around this time, but around when we were doing our previews, we were talking, is Cam going to be... Is this it for Cam in Carolina? And
right.
Some of these other names that we mentioned, and I'm very simply going to mention Matthew Stafford. This guy might be out of the league after this year if this doesn't work out, right? So injuries, I know he had a lower back, upper back issue, some disc issues. That's going to be a huge problem for them because obviously they've made some moves defensively, but without Matt Stafford, that team doesn't go.
Most definitely. Let's go ahead and take a look at the depth chart of the Detroit Lions. So we mentioned Matthew Stafford, Chase Daniels backing them up.
Former Bear.
Their starting running back looks like it's going to be DeAndre Swift, along with Kerryon Johnson.
That's going to be a good backfield.
Yes,
Swift, because Swift was amazing in Georgia when he was splitting carries.
Right. And then their starting 3 wide receivers going to be Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones Jr., Danny Amendola. With T.J. Hawkinson as the starting tight end. From left to right on the front lines is Taylor Decker, Joe Dahl, Frank Ragnow, Jonah Jackson, and let's see if I can get this right. Halapuvatai Vatide must be Hawaiian Samoan.
Yeah, gotta be Samoan. Yeah. So left side of that line pretty good. Right side I've never heard of.
Then they run the 4-3 defense. So from left to right on the front is Romero Akawa, Danny Shelton, Nick Williams, and Trey Flowers. Your linebackers weak to strong is Jamie Collins Sr., Gerard Davis, and Christian Jones. And then from left to right in the secondary, Desmond Trufant. Your safeties, Duron Harmon and Tracy Walker, with Jeff Okuda as on the right side. And then looking at their schedule going into this year, the Detroit Lions start the season off against the Bears on that's Sunday afternoon game. So they have, home against the Bears, at Green Bay, at Arizona, home against New Orleans. Then they get the bye week. Then they get at Jacksonville, at Atlanta, home against Indianapolis, at Minnesota, home against Washington, at Carolina, home against Houston, at the Bears, home against Green Bay, at Tennessee, and then back-to-back home games against the Bucks and the Vikings.
Ooh, schedule's pretty rough.
I'll say 7 wins if Stafford stays healthy.
Yeah.
I'll say 5 if he's hurt.
Yeah, I would even go further to say I think they have a chance to be like an 8 or 9 win team because, again, we've talked about it before. You play your division tough, and if they could steal one from the Vikings and steal one from the Bears and steal one from the Packers, who knows about this team? Because, honestly, I was surprised to hear how much depth they have. They have a surprisingly good team. I think the secondary might be the issue for them. I mean, Okuda is a first-round pick, and who knows how he's going to fit in from day one, and Desmond Trufant isn't exactly world beater. So yeah, I would say 8 wins with Stafford and probably like closer to 3 or 4 without him. But yeah, a crossroads for them. Crossroads for them either way, right? Because if Stafford doesn't finish out the year there, or isn't at least healthy throughout the whole year, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he just signed a historic deal like 2 years ago.
Some 8 year, and I remember when Colin Cowherd went on his show and he's like, "I get Matthew Stafford a blank check, tell him sign whatever you want."
Yeah, that's a funny
really,
one.
dude. For a team that hasn't won a playoff game since G.H.W. Bush, who died some time ago,
who wasted a generational talent, 2 generational talents in the last 30 years,
and is the only team to claim the fame on that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Come
right.
on, dude.
Yeah, even Megatron's like, yeah, good luck with that one.
Said I'm out of this joint.
Drop down.
Okay. Let's go to Green Bay and talk about the Packers.
Let's do it. Your boy Aaron Rodgers, another make or break year for him.
Aaron Rodgers, give me a break, dude. I'm serious, dude. Like I might be the only person alive who uses the O word when it comes to Aaron Rodgers.
No, you're not.
And the funny thing is, here's Buck fans get on me about it because they be like they'll come and be like, well, you said the same thing about Jameis, if he had a defense, if he had this, that. But they're going to use the same argument against this clown that everybody makes that's the best quarterback since sliced bread when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. If he had Jimmy Graham, who's a pretty decent tight end, couldn't work with that. Then you had...
The defense was tremendous last year. I mean, let's remember, the defense, they were the Sack brothers for the first 8 games, and yet they were still... not able to beat Washington, not able to put away some of these teams, mainly because of the offense.
The Chargers on the road.
Mainly because of the offense. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah.
Mainly because of the offense. Go ahead and repeat that one more time.
Mainly because of the offense, and you don't have another receiver to show for it this year too. So all you got is a brand new young quarterback to sit behind him.
So Aaron Rodgers is going to obviously be the starter, and then in the backfield you're going to have Aaron Jones with A.J. Dillon. I like that pick from BC. In the backfield, Devontae Adams, Alan Lazard, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling are going to be the starting wide receivers. Starting tight end is Jace Stenberger. From left to right on the front line is David
Stenberger.
Yeah.
I can't imagine why Aaron Rodgers is mad at them. You let Jimmy Graham go. God. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No.
Jay Stenberger as a starting tight end in this league.
Not only am I going to deem Aaron Rodgers maybe the most overrated quarterback in the NFL currently wearing a jersey.
Yeah.
I'll even stem and say that I think the Green Bay Packers might be the most overrated team in the NFL, period. Again, all I'm saying is this, and here's my favorite. This is going to be my personal favorite when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
You're a Bucs fan. You don't know anything.
You just don't know
You
the
root
sports,
for the
bro.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know what's the one cool thing sometimes about rooting for Tampa Bay?
Yeah.
Is sometimes when they do suck, a lot of the times when they do suck, I'm able to watch other teams too.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just not stuck on watching them.
Right.
So when they're out there getting G-smoked by God knows who, because Jameis Winston was throwing a lot of picks, I turn and watch other teams.
Yeah.
And outside of them finally finding a running back, because I don't know why they thought that Ty Montgomery in the backfield was anything close to a great idea. When you actually let Aaron Jones run the flipping ball.
And they barely did that, too.
Right.
I mean, they didn't even give him the ball enough last year, and he was one of the best running backs in the league.
Thank you. The man had to get 144 yards and 12 carries while you were giving it to the other idiot. That
Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams, yeah, exactly.
Jamal Williams, and just wait until this year because they're going to do the same thing with A.J. Dillon and Jones. And it's like, dude, you went out and drafted A.J. Dillon, which I think is he's going to be a good player, but you have 5 other glaring needs on the offense, and you just drafted a high draft pick to one of your strongest positions. I'm sorry.
You used your first high draft pick to bring in Jordan Love.
One that you know he's not going to play this year.
Right.
And then another one on a guy who, by the way, is a flyer, because I know Dillon's a great player, but we know how it is with running backs. You come into the league, it's a brand new ball game, right? And you just had a guy who'd established himself last year as a playmaker in this league, and now you're like, no, let's spend draft capital on that. I don't understand it. The Packers had a really nice 5 to 7 year run where they were drafting tremendously for those 5 or 7 years.
Yes.
Really, really well.
Yes.
And it was a Ted Thompson years. And then what happened was, after the Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy riff in their second to last or last year, the team started drafting really poorly and free agents really poorly. Last year was the first year it worked out for them with the Smith brothers and Amos and all these other guys. It's been a while since they've had that. So yeah, what's their off? I'm sorry, I cut you off at Jay Stenberger. Go ahead.
Aaron Rodgers to Jay Stenberger for the touchdown. How many times we're going to hear that?
Once,
4?
maybe.
Yeah, 4 if you're lucky. Right. Exactly.
Is Brian Bulaga still on this team?
Brian Bulaga is not on this team.
Good.
I think we mentioned his name somewhere else.
Yeah, I think you know what? He's on Hard Knocks, so he's on one of those LA teams.
One of the LA teams.
Yeah, go ahead.
David
Bakhtiari.
Bakhtiari's on there.
Yeah.
Eldon Jenkins, Corey Lindsley, Billy Turner, and Rick Wagner.
It's a pretty good offensive line. Maybe like 4 out of the 5 are good.
Yeah. And then obviously Green Bay runs the 3-4. So your front 3 is Dean Lowry, Kenny Clark, and Tyler Lancaster. With the linebackers weak to strong, Preston Smith, Christian Kirksey, Owen Burks, and Zadarius Smith. And then in the secondary, Jair Alexander. Your safeties are Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage. And Kevin King is on the right side of that team.
I would be worried about running the running defense for them, because their middle linebackers are not very good at run stopping. So I would just run the ball 50 times against them.
And then looking at their schedule, they have... Okay, that's the game I was looking for. They start off at Minnesota, home against Detroit, at New Orleans, and then they're home against the Atlanta Falcons. That's a Monday night game. The bye week, and when they come back, they get Peter slapped by Tampa Bay, at Houston, home against Minnesota, at San Francisco, home against Jacksonville, at Indy, back-to-back home games with the Bears. That's a Sunday night, and then Philadelphia, at Detroit, home against Carolina, home against Green Bay, and then they finish in Chicago. So here's the funny thing about Green Bay. Green Bay, I mean, if I'm looking at this, if I looked at guaranteed losses, not wins, just losses, you can call me a homer all you want. They're not beating these Bucks. Okay, if it was Jameis Bucks, because we all know how he can throw interceptions, maybe.
Yeah.
Tom Brady's Bucks, we're throwing 7 TDs on your sorry asses.
And
Jair Alexander, my ass.
San Francisco,
guarantee
New
loss.
Orleans. I know New Orleans.
That game's at New Orleans. That's a Sunday night.
And then you got the Bears twice in 5 weeks.
You're losing at least
late.
one of those.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing, man. They're 1 or 2 injuries away on the offensive side of the ball from being straight up terrible. Because let's say, for example, okay, I'm not wishing this upon anyone, but let's say, for example, Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones go down within 2 or 3 weeks. You're basically working with, second-year wide receivers, Jay Stenberger and A.J. Dillon. So, they've got to be careful, man. Depth-wise, they've got to be careful because I know that they tried to strengthen their depth with the Dillon pickup and obviously drafting a quarterback early. But when it comes down to it, they've got to be careful. I see this team as possibly anywhere between the 8 and 10 wins if things go really well. But if things go bad, they could be one of those that's like 3 or 4 wins, and that would be really, really nice exit strategy for the Packers to say, all right, Aaron, where you want to go, because this ain't happening anymore.
Oh, that's the next question I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
When does Aaron Rodgers get Aaron Rodgers?
Here's another thing. I think Aaron has been planning this for the last couple of years, meaning I think he has an exit strategy ready. One of the conspiracies I have is that I think he wants to go to San Francisco. My guess would be San Francisco would probably have no problem letting go of Jimmy Garoppolo for Aaron Rodgers, right? Right. So if the 49ers don't do too well this year and the Packers don't do too well this year, that kind of works out for both teams pretty well. I have a feeling that he knows he's going to be gone no matter what. Right. Just the way that he's talking to the media and like entertaining the fact that maybe he would play with the Bears and maybe he would play with this team. But I think Aaron Rodgers, you're right. He has to look into a mirror and realize what the issue is, right? We know that him and Mike McCarthy had these spats, right? And it's funny because you never hear about him being like a locker room cancer, locker room this, but yet somehow some of these guys who have one incident in the media who just so happen to have a darker shade of skin are like, oh, this guy's the worst thing. You don't want him in the locker room. But Aaron Rodgers drives away 2 coordinators and a head coach, and he's just, that's just Aaron. It's fine. So yeah, he's got to take a long look in the mirror this year, because if the Packers don't do what they want to do this year, they'll probably say, let's move on.
Right.
8 to 10 wins is probably fair for them. 10 wins.
Yeah. I think I can give you that.
Okay.
Let's go to Minnesota. Talk about the Vikings real quick.
Gladly.
Looking at their depth chart, obviously Kirk Cousins is going to be starting.
Who's your backup this year?
Sean
Mannion. Okay, good luck with that. All right.
And then
I thought they would have signed a veteran. But
then they also got Jake Browning and Nate Stanley on this.
Okay. So basically no backup. Okay, go ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we're also talking about a team that notoriously runs the ball.
True.
50 times a game.
And Mannion's been there for a few years too, so it makes sense.
And then you got Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison running in that backfield. Adam Thielen, Bissell Johnson, and Justin Jefferson, who they drafted this year, are your starting wide receivers. Mm-hmm. Kyle Rudolph, obviously, is going to be the starting tight end. With Riley Reiff, Pat Elflein, Garrett Bradbury, Dakota Dozier, and Brian O'Neill as your offensive line.
I would be worried about that offensive line if I were them.
And then looking at their defensive front, they run a 4-3. So front four is going to be Danielle Hunter, Jaleel Johnson, Shamar Stephen, and Ifedi Adenijibo.
No, what's his name? No Everson Griffin this year, huh?
We mentioned his name earlier. There
Cowboys,
you go. He went to Dallas,
yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Your linebackers are Eric Wilson, Eric Kendricks, and Anthony Baugh. And then your secondary is Mike Hughes. Safeties are Harrison Smith and Anthony Harris. And then Holton Hill is your right side defensive back.
Can I give you a hot take? Mm-hmm. Hot off the presses. Even before I hear the schedule, I think this is a 6-win team. Because here's what what we saw last year was how should we say this? A new identity of Minnesota, right? Because we knew they wanted to run the ball, but they didn't do it effectively previously. And last year, they ran the ball so well with that sort of Gary Kubiak type system, right?
The stretch
runs,
yep.
and giving your running backs cutting lanes, right?
Yep.
And that works when you've got automatic hands in Adam Thielen and a downfield threat with Diggs, right? But we saw in the games that Kirk Cousins struggled, specifically against the Bears and some of these other teams that defensively don't give up much on the run side. He struggled notoriously against them. Now you enter the fact that they have a weakened offensive line. They've got a weakened defensive line. And then on top of that, really the core of this team is the linebackers.
Yep.
So they're really going to be hoping and praying that B.C. Johnson and Justin Jefferson and Kyle Rudolph and some of these guys can make up for it. Because let's be honest, if you're a defense this year and you're looking at them, I'm putting my best guy in Adam Thielen. I may be double covering him and just letting other guys beat me at this point.
Which was why I thought Buffalo came away big in that Stephon Diggs deal, because it was like Buffalo needed a wide receiver, and Stephon Diggs was growing rather uneasy with the whole running play, because he's like, dude, I got some of the best hands in the NFL, and we're just going to run the ball 500 times and throw it 10. So why am I out here on the field?
And also, let's be honest, it's not like they take many chances either, right? Because some teams will run the ball, but they have to mix in at least a couple of crazy plays every once in a while. These guys don't. They're just going to run the ball, get what they can out of it, maybe take a couple of shots for Kirk Cousins just to keep him happy. But otherwise, it's going to be – and here's the thing. Can they outscore people?
Yep.
So what's going to happen now is when your defense is a little bit less I remember a couple of games like the Buffalo game last year was really low scoring. Buffalo couldn't score the ball. Minnesota couldn't score the ball. And all of a sudden, Minnesota gets a little momentum and they run away with the game, right? They're not going to have a lot of games like that this season. They're going to have a lot of games this season where, as the White Sox just give up another run, it's 8-3 now, top of the 8th. They're going to have a lot of games now where they're going to be down 14-0.
Yep.
Can Dalvin Cook get you out of 14-0 this year? I don't know. I don't see this
healthy
team.
Dalvin Cook at that, because you have to also factor in the fact that as much as I like Dalvin Cook, he's injury prone,
and he wants money this year. I mean, that's another thing this year is he's more inclined to be played a little safe this year. Let's just say it that way, because Zimmer and company don't feel comfortable extending him the way he wants to be extended. So I'm
and
sorry.
Rightfully so with the injury
and with the trend of let's just give you one example before we move on. Le'Veon Bell. Mm-hmm. Every report I'm reading is saying he's the third best running back in New York right now, behind Frank Gore and another guy that you've never heard of. And they just gave him that deal 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. The amount of, as the Royals just busted wide open, now it's 9-3. Was he out there? Oh, he's safe, even better. So the specific problem that you're going to have this year is going to be you're not going to be able to outscore people, and on top of that, you're not going to be able to get back by running. You're not going to be able to give it to Dalvin 14 times after you're down 14-0. So Dalvin's a little bit less, he's more inclined to hold out this year, and Le'Veon Bell's a perfect example of a guy you gave all the money to, and now he might be a cut candidate. That's crazy to think about.
I know, right? Hey, before we go on to the schedule, could you imagine how good the Cubs outfield would be if they had not given up on Eloy and Jorge Soler?
That's the funniest thing. I was just going to mention they gave up Dylan Cease for Jose Quintana, who they're now trying to trade, and they gave up Jorge Soler for pretty much nothing. It was Wade Davis. So Jorge Soler had, I want to say, 40-something home runs and 100-something RBIs last year for the Royals. Just imagine if he was with the Cubs. And, they felt better because they couldn't move Jason Hayward's contract.
A contract they never should have signed in the first place.
Yeah, and
you can't tell me nothing, dude. There was nothing in Jason Hayward's past
that made you believe
that he was worth, what was it, like 8 for 1.8? I don't know if it was that
like
expensive.
120 something for 8 years, which is pretty crazy to think. I mean, that was 3 or 4 years before Bryce got 200. Bryce got 200. So, listen, the real issue with the Cubs was that they were so desperate for rings that they have rationalized for themselves that who cares if we lost Eloy? Who cares if we lost Jorge Soler? Who cares if we lost Dylan Cease? Who cares if we gave up a couple of pitchers last year or 2 years ago?
Who cares we gave up Gleyber Torres?
Gleyber Torres, another perfect example. They could have had a dynasty level team right now, but they said we just need one ring, and they got their ring, and good luck with that, guys.
Because Schwarber, I think I still would love to see Schwarber with that swing and a Yankees uniform,
as a DH?
Why not? Yeah. And then B, who else is in the outfield? Hayward should have never gotten paid. And
Albert Almora having a terrible season this year.
Another terrible season.
Yeah. And Schwarber having a better season defensively, too. So, remember, when Schwarber came out and had that rookie year, they wouldn't trade him for anything. Remember? It was like,
he's untouchable.
And now it's like, maybe we could have given him up instead of Gleyber.
Yep. Because that was, I think, to be honest with you, that might have been the original deal. Was Schwarber for Aroldis and not Gleyber, but they didn't want to give up on Schwarber because everyone thought, oh man, he's going to recover from that leg injury and he's going to be okay and blah 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 this and that.
He hasn't even hit the cover off the ball either. I mean, he hasn't been tremendous because you know how it is in baseball. The bat plays, right? So even if he's bad and left, the bat plays, but he hasn't even been that great. And let's be honest, I'll give him credit. His defense has gotten a lot better. He is an actual corner outfield now, which is great. But he would look good in a uniform in the DH. Hopefully, they just go with the DH full time this this year. We got to stop with the pitchers hitting. But
exactly. All right, so Minnesota's schedule looks like this. Mack already said 6 wins before I even said anything.
Sorry guys, I had to.
They open up against Green Bay at home, at Indy versus Tennessee, home against Tennessee, back-to-back road games against Houston and Seattle, home against Atlanta. They get the bye week 7. Then they're at Green Bay, home against Detroit, at Chicago. That's a Monday night. Home against Dallas, home against Carolina, home against Jacksonville, at Tampa, home against the Bears, at New Orleans, and they finish off at Detroit. So if I was to look at the 6 wins that you were talking about, I would probably say Detroit twice.
You might be able to
maybe the Bears at home.
Yeah, you might be able to catch the Packers and the Bears maybe once.
So that's 4. Carolina, I think, would make 5. Jacksonville might make 6. But these first 6 games of the week are brutal, dude.
And the Cowboys that's a rough.
This brutal. Home against Green Bay, at at Indianapolis, home against Tennessee, who's a much improved team, at Houston, that's 50-50, at Seattle, and then you're home against Atlanta. And I think Atlanta's 50-50. So
the reason why I'm gonna stick with 6 wins just because I feel like, and we talked about this last week too, we look at this with the lens of what happened last year, and we're looking at some of these teams with the lens of, okay, that's an easy win or that's an easy loss. And this year, I think more than any other year, because it's gonna be crazy with no fans, Corona, no preseason, and all this crazy stuff. People who have depth are going to be doing fine, and people who are top heavy are not going to do so fine. I think Minnesota is very top heavy. I'll give them 6. I'll give them 6 on a really, really bad season, and on a good season, I'll give them 8.
8. There you go.
Yeah.
So let's go to Chicago and talk about the Bears.
Yeah, let's talk. I mean, listen. We all know what happened over the offseason. Nick Foles brought in to be that insurance policy. A lot of people, Matt Nagy came out today and said they're not going to be choosing a starter before week 1. It's basically going to be, dependent on who does really well over the next couple of weeks. That seems kind of crazy to me, and that also is another indicator to me that Mitch is going to be the starting quarterback, right? David Montgomery hurt himself, and you have nobody behind him. Basically, you have Cordero Patterson, a wide receiver, and Cherry Cohen, another wide receiver masquerading as a running back. So depth is a big issue right now for the Bears, especially at running back. Devontae Freeman looks really nice out there. It'll be
still looking to get paid.
Still looking for a job. So if you're Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace and it's your last year, you might want to go out and try and get some depth at running back because, wide receiver, they've made it clear. It's going to be Allen Robinson and a bunch of young guys and the new tight ends, and that's what they're going to do. And, we're going to have to deal with that. As Bears fans, we're not going to get help at wide receiver this year. You're going to have to be ready for Allen Robinson to get another 125 targets and just got to be ready for whatever when it comes to, when it comes to the Bears, their tight end's very important, so let's hope Jimmy Graham is a big thing. I talked about him last week, but his name was escaping me. But Cole Kmet is the tight end that they got out of Notre Dame, really athletic guy. We'll see what difference that makes. And the offensive line is pretty strong. I think they maybe have one hole on the offensive line. And the defense is tremendous. So, I think the Bears right now are going to go where the quarterback takes them. And I think, Mitch, he has to understand that he's a game manager at this point, right? I think sometimes quarterbacks don't want to be called that because it makes you look bad, right? You're like, I'm not a game manager. I'm a guy who can do that. And we talked about it.
I can throw down the field 50 yards.
And listen, we talked about it with Jameis last year.
Yep.
Jameis is not a game manager. He's a game breaker. So he wants to break the game wide open with every single play. And Mitch, and let's be honest, Jameis has the arm to do that, right? He has the arm talent to do that, right? Mitch is the exact opposite. He's lacking in many areas. Now, he's made some good throws in camp, and there's a lot of real huge positivity right now around Mitch Trubisky from quote-unquote media who has seen him. I will say that without a running back other than David Montgomery, you're going to be in a lot of 10-3, 10-7, 13-10 games, and you're going to wish that you had gone and gotten a little bit more. So I think Matt Nagy might have a trick up his sleeve. We'll see, but I think that's important because the schedule is pretty rough, just like it is for the rest of the division. The schedule is not going to be easy.
No, it's not. So you mentioned Mitch is going to start with Nick Foles right behind him. Then you got David Montgomery with Tariq Cohen technically on this depth chart, but you talked about Cordarrelle Patterson probably taking some snaps back there. Starting wide receivers, according to the depth chart, is Allen Robinson II, Anthony Miller, and Ted Ginn Jr., with Jimmy Graham and Cole Kmet being your starting two tight ends. Your offensive line is Charles Leno Jr., James Daniels, Cody Whitehair, Jermaine Ifedi, and Bobby Massey from left to right. And then I was looking at this defense too because I almost slipped and was like, hey, why don't you guys go out there and sign Jadeveon Clowney? He's out there. But then you got Robert Quinn. So don't mind me on that one. Akeem Hicks hopefully come back healthy with John Jenkins and Bilal Nichols.
That's where I'm worried too. Because Eddie Goldman, he opted out, and he's a huge cog in that defense. He opted out, and we had a couple injuries on the defensive line, so we're really thin there. That's why I'm worried right now on the defense.
And then looking at the linebackers, pretty solid crew with Khalil Mack, Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan, and the aforementioned Robert Quinn that's now signed on there. And then looking at your secondary, Buster Skrine, Tayshaun Gibson Sr., Eddie Jackson, and Kyle Fuller is in the secondary for the Chicago Bears. And then looking at their schedule this year, I don't know. The Bears open up against Detroit on the road, home against the Giants, at Atlanta, home against Indianapolis, then they're home against the Bucs. That's a Thursday night game. At Carolina, at the Rams. That's a Monday night game. Home against New Orleans, at Tennessee, and then another Monday night game against Minnesota. Then they get the bye week 11, and then they're at Green Bay Sunday night, home against Detroit, home against Houston, at Minnesota, at Jacksonville, and then they finish off home against Green Bay. Here's the thing about the Bears. If the Bears could get back to what they were 2 years ago, that's easily 12 wins.
Yeah.
If they're still going to deal with the injuries and then not get what they can in the, from like Khalil Mack, and now you got another pass rusher in Robert Quinn.
Yeah.
If you can't, if you're trying to do what you did last year with the injuries and everything, This is a 7-win team, so it all depends. But we mentioned this a couple weeks ago when we talked about Trubisky and the thoughts on him. Is that I think Trubisky has been given a huge disservice because when I look at the wide receivers, Ted Ginn gets paid because he's fast.
Yeah, and he's like 40 now, so how fast can he be?
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ted Ginn is not Joey Galloway.
No.
Joey Galloway was maybe even a little bit smaller than Ted Ginn, but had the speed, but he could at least catch footballs. Mm-hmm. Ted Ginn, since he's been drafted by the Miami Dolphins, which cost Cam Cameron his job in the only year he was ever head coach / GM of the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
Ted Ginn has only been he's been the deep threat. And when you throw it up there, you got to hope and pray that he's going to come down with it.
He's got to be wide open.
You feel what I'm saying? And that's ridiculous. So still, unless Jimmy Graham is going to come up and be the monster that he was in New Orleans, and unless Cole Kmet is the good young talent that many people think he are, outside of Allen Robinson, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
Anthony Miller, and I'm going to be forever pissed at Anthony Miller because
I
lost the championship game because of his dumb ass. Okay?
He'll never live that down.
No, I won't, dude. Freaking 3 weeks beforehand, 15 points, 14 points, 22 points. All I need you is for 1 week. Just give me a solid 10 and I'm good.
Yeah.
Didn't even catch the ball.
I remember.
Piss off, dude. I was so mad. But still, that's beside the point. That's the inconsistency.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's specific out of the receivers too.
Right.
Yeah. No, and listen, you're right that Mitch has been asked to be Patrick Mahomes, right? And that's so unfair in so many ways. That he is going to be for the rest of his career compared to Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. And at the end of the day, dude, this guy's neither one of those guys. He is his own guy. He's a guy that you absolutely are going to need to still grow here. People forget, dude, he basically played 2.5 years of football before he was drafted.
Yep.
That is not really what
you 1 year being a starter.
1 year being a starter, and basically the rest he was either in high school or riding a bench at North Carolina. The big issue for me right now is that you got a tremendous defense, but the window is closing on this defense. So the window is closing for this whole franchise. So if you're a Bears fan this year, you got to be all in this year, man. You got to be ready for whatever this year because you have to be honest with yourself. If this season doesn't go as well as you hope it does, this team is going to blow up over the next 2 years.
Yep.
Especially from the head coach and GM perspective. But I agree with you. I think we could easily be a 10-win team. I think 10 wins is probably what you should be, your over-under should be at.
Yep.
Because with the type of talent that this team has on the defensive side of the ball, they're going to terrorize teams this year. Robert Quinn is a perfect complement to Khalil Mack. And if Akeem Hicks can stay healthy, we're going to have no problem stopping the run with our linebackers, and we can take the ball away from teams in our secondary. So the offense just has to hold up its end of the bargain. And luckily for the Bears fans this year, quarterback can't be an excuse because if Mitch doesn't get the job done, then you've got Foles coming in right behind him,
yep.
and you get to see what the hype is about. So I think you should be very optimistic if you're a Bears fan this year. But the first 3 or 4 weeks, I said this with all the teams, no preseason. That first 3 or 4 weeks is going to determine the rest of your season.
Right.
If you start off 1-5, 1-3, 2-6. It's going to be a long fucking season for all teams. So, the Bears have to be ready for that. But I think 10 wins is a nice sort of, medium. And I think you're right. There's 12, 13 wins on the table for them if they have a crazy defensive season like we think they will.
I still say don't run Tariq Cohen in between the tackles thinking that this guy is a 20-carry type of dude like they tried to do last year. Like I said, you went away from what made you so successful 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And you need to bring it back. So we'll see what happens.
And let's hope and pray that we sign another running back between now because, it's a 2-week injury for David Montgomery, and we're 2 weeks away from opening games.
Yep.
So, we need another running back.
With teams running scrimmages and stuff, too, now.
If number 84 is lined up in the backfield and starting running back in week 1, I will fucking flip my shit. So let's just make sure that Cordero Patterson isn't the number one.
Let's figure this out, gentlemen.
Let's get something. Devontae Freeman's still waiting at home. Give that man a job.
Exactly. All right, well, we'll go to the West real quick. We'll run through the West, and then next week we'll finish off with the South.
Yes, sir.
Let's start off with the Arizona Cardinals. They made a big trade to bring in DeAndre Hopkins, but their starting quarterback, obviously, is going to be Kyler Murray. Brett Hundley backing him up. And then you got Kenyon Drake, who they acquired in the middle at the trading deadline. He's still with the team with Chase Edmonds behind him. Starting wide receivers, as I mentioned, DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, and Larry Fitzgerald, with Max Williams as your starting tight end. Left to right in the front, it's going to be DJ Humphries, Justin Pugh, Mason Cole, J.R. Sweezy, and Josh Jones. And then they run the 3-4 defense. So Zach Allen, Jordan Phillips, and Corey Peters in the front, with Chandler Jones, Jordan Hicks, Isaiah Simmons, and Devin Kennard from weak to strong. And then in the secondary, you got Patrick Peterson with Jalen Thompson, Budda Baker as your safeties, with Byron Murphy Jr. as your right defensive back. And then looking at the schedule for the Arizona Cardinals this year, looks a little bit something like this. They'll open up against San Francisco in San Francisco, and then they're home against the Washington football team, home against Detroit, at Carolina, at the Jets, at Dallas for a Monday night game, and then they're home against Seattle before they get the bye week in Week 8. Then it's home against Miami, home against Buffalo, at Seattle, at New England, home against the Rams, at New York, home against Philly, then home against San Francisco, and at the Los Angeles Rams. Here's the thing about the West. I think the West might be – Seattle's going to be good. The Rams could be good. 49ers speak for themselves. Arizona's kind of that team to see if the entire West is really going to be good, or it's going to be three and then just Arizona. I think they came away with maybe the biggest robbery in the NFL when they traded David Johnson for one of the better receivers in the game, DeAndre Hopkins. But I mean, looking at their schedule, it's easy. Yeah. I'm not gonna say it's tough. Yeah, you got 6 games within 2 against San Francisco, 2 against Seattle, 2 against the Rams. But then you look at your other teams. I mean, you got Detroit, you got Washington, you got New England, you got the Giants. You got Buffalo's gonna be tough, but there's still no telling how good Miami can or won't be.
Yeah.
So if I said over under 8 wins, I would probably go slightly above the over to 9, but I don't see this team any worse than 7-9, 8-8.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I also think we talk about steps up constantly on this show and how teams have to take the step up and are in position to take the step up. I think Arizona did that when they made that trade with Houston, because you brought in your number one for the next 10 years, hopefully, and now you've got Kyler Murray, you've got a running back that you believe in, and you've got wide receivers that can run this system. Let's remember, Cliff Kingsbury runs a really specific system that's wide receiver heavy. They don't use tight ends a lot. They don't even really use a lot of inside receivers. It's just a lot of spread receivers that are doing different things, and it's going to be make or break for Cliff Kingsbury. Can you coach in this league with this type of offense and still survive? I agree with you, though. I think they can take a step up because they can win in shootouts now. Yep. They're gonna have the artillery, and when you look around their defense, they've got some names that stick out to you. You've got the Chandler Jones, you've got Patrick Peterson, you've got Budda Baker. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that in general when it comes to the defense. But yeah, I think 8 or 9 wins is pretty attainable with that schedule.
And on top of that, look at the impact that Kenyon Drake brought to this team.
Yeah, after he got there. Yeah.
Right. So Miami couldn't wait to get rid of him. Arizona said, we'll take him. Then they started running that option offense, and Kenyon Drake happened to really fit in it well. So they could really be good offensively. But like you said, with Chandler Jones back there on the defensive side of the ball, and I think he either led the league. No, he didn't lead the league sacks. What's his name? Did in Tampa.
But he was talking earlier this year about how he wants to set the single season record and all this other stuff. So
be careful with that. I'd be careful with that because the last people that said they wanted to break Michael Strahan's record and Warren Sapp and Simeon Rice both came up way too short.
And listen, dude, if you're already talking about it before the season, it's not going to happen.
It's probably not going to happen. Right. Let's go and talk about the Los Angeles Rams.
Interesting.
They got Jared Goff starting. Cam Akers
is Blake Bortles still the backup for them?
They got John Wolford backing up on the Rams.
Okay, so no more Blake Bortles there. Okay.
I think we mentioned Blake Bortles.
Did we mention him?
I think so.
Yeah, he's probably in one of the Eastern teams. Huh?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
I think so. Cam Akers, who they freshly drafted in the second round, is out there. Second or first round? I think it was
second, right?
I think it was second, too.
I think it was second. So, yeah, but that's interesting because you forget that they let go of Gurley, and now
he's in Atlanta now.
Yeah.
Then I know that was a tough decision, but I mean, think about it, man. The Rams I thought was interesting in that whole sequence. Remember, they went out and drafted, who's the kid from Auburn?
Oh, you mean last
a couple years back, Trey. Was it Trey? Oh, my God. He was one of the integral parts in that three-headed monster in Auburn. And he was on that team that Florida State beat. For the love of me, I can't think of his name. I don't know if it's like Trey Davis or Trey Smith. It's Trey something.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the year before they drafted Gurley, he had ran for almost over 1,300 yards. Then they take
Trey Mason.
Trey Mason. There you
That's
go.
right. You're right. Yeah.
Right. So they had Trey Mason. Trey Mason runs for almost 1,300 yards. Then they turn around and they get Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
But they hid Todd Gurley's injuries so good last year.
Yeah. And Todd Gurley hid his injuries from the league.
It was, does he suck? Is he hurt? Do we know? Like, look, man, I'm fine, but I think he wasn't fine. But then you go out and you get I'm assuming you get rid of him, but you let him go.
It was a contract with him at the end of the day, right? If the contract was better, you can hold on to him. But the contract was so crippling to them, they had to let him go.
Right, exactly.
And Atlanta, by the way, everything I'm reading is they're ecstatic with having him in the backfield because he looks rejuvenated. Let's remember he's from the area, so that could be one that a lot of people are going to be sleeping on Gurley's name this year in fantasy. I wouldn't. He's gonna be getting the ball a lot.
Yep. Take some of that pressure off of Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
But so Cam Akers on there. Then your wide receivers is Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and Josh Reynolds with what's his name gone? Oh my God, who's the one that's in Houston now?
Oh, Brandon Cooks.
There you go. Brandon Cooks gone. Yeah. Yes.
They didn't even need him.
Right.
They'd be fine.
And then you got Tyler Higbee with Gerald Everett as your two tight ends. The front is Andrew Whitworth.
Still alive?
He's still alive.
Oh, my God. He's still
protecting Goff.
Okay.
With Austin Corbett, Austin Blythe, David Edwards, and Rob Havenstein. And then they run the 3-4 defense. So Michael Brockers, Ashawn Robinson, and Aaron Donald.
That's going to be a problem this year.
Are your front three, most definitely.
Yeah.
And then Samson Incoubam, Micah Kaiser, Troy Reeder, and Leonard Floyd is weak to strong.
Former Bear Leonard Floyd up in L.A. Okay.
And then their secondary is Jalen Ramsey, John Johnson III, Taylor Rapp, and Troy Hill your three. I mean, it's your secondary. And then Sam Sloman is taking over for Greg Zuerlein, who went to Dallas.
Oh, that's right. Zuerlein, yeah.
So
that middle, like the two middle linebackers, that was worse than I thought because I thought they had at least I totally forgot that they lost one of their guys to Oakland last year. I want to say, who was their leading tackler that Oakland just signed over the offseason? He was a tremendous inside linebacker, and they had to let him go, and they have nobody in there. And let's remember, they have a hard time stopping the run because Aaron Donald is such an integral part of what they do up front that if he doesn't blow everything up, they tend to give up a lot of yards.
I still say that I think when they lost Sue,
they need a space eater. That's simple as that. Ashawn Robinson. But the reason why I'm happy to hear those three because Brockers, Ashawn Robinson, and Donald are gonna be a problem in the middle. The other problem though is that you know how it is with 3-4 defenses. If your three guys aren't blowing it up every play, then those back four guys are going to be held accountable. And when you have two guys, two of the inside linebackers who can, yes, sir. Oh, he threw it away. Yes, sir. And that's going to score another 2.
9-6.
9-6. Should I put my rally cap on? And Moncada is constantly hurt, always getting hurt. And let's see if he's okay sliding into second, as Holland is just giving us the lead.
Looks like someone got hurt in that.
Yeah, I don't know if Moncada's had a bad right thigh for a long time. He can't. Oh, yeah. Kennedy got hurt getting to the ball. Yeah, he got hurt getting to the ball, and he threw it away. So they gave the White Sox a little new life. Yeah, he came up limping right there. But anyways, yeah, sorry. So when it comes down to it, you know how it is with 3-4 defenses, as do I now. You got to have accountability in the middle linebackers or you're going to be in trouble. That's why I'm very happy with the Bears, because even if, listen, Akeem Hicks and everybody up front doesn't blow it up, we've got 2 all-pro middle linebackers that can do it for us, whereas I'm not sure if LA has that right now. And I've been keeping a close eye on things for them fantasy-wise, because I'm telling you, they're going to, one of those running backs that they have is going to break out this year, because they need to. They need them to. So keep a close eye on that too. If you're a fantasy guy, which I know there's going to be a lot of drafts over the next couple of weeks here, as I'm watching Moncada being taken off the field here. I think Moncada honestly is just hurt previously, and then he had to hustle to second, unfortunately, and slide in, and things don't look too good right now for the White Sox. But they do have a man on second with an out in the bottom of the 9th, and it's 9-6. So yeah, and then you know, when it comes down to it, it's another big year for Jared Goff too. Jared Goff's going to have to figure something out this year, because you know, we saw the progression that he made under is it Sean Payton, and no, I'm sorry, I always forget his name. What's the name of the coach in LA? Sean. Oh God, I always forget his name every single time. And I just watched him, in Hard Knocks too, and I like him. He's a Sean. Oh God, I don't know. But yeah, they had a very good first year together, and then after that, it kind of dipped off. And last year, he wasn't that consistent either. So,
of course, you know they're not going to give you the head coach name.
Yeah, coach. It's Sean. Oh.
I'm with you. I blank.
Sean McVay. Sorry, I always call him Sean Payton. But yeah, McVay is a young guy. You know, young former coordinator. Did really well with them to start off, and last year was not so good. So big season for both of those guys.
And then looking at the Rams' schedule, looks a little bit like this. Mm-hmm. They open up against Dallas. That's a Sunday night game. Ooh. At Philly, at Buffalo. Ouch. Home against the Giants. At Washington. At San Francisco. That's a Sunday night. Ooh. Then they have Monday night home against the Bears. And then they're at Miami for the bye week, week 9. Then they finish off home against Seattle. At Tampa Bay. That's a Monday night game.
Wow.
Home against San Francisco, at Arizona, home against New England, home against the Jets, at Seattle, and they finish off home against the Arizona Cardinals. Bro, jeez, that's a tough schedule.
That's a really tough schedule, especially because, I mean, the two teams in your division are basically top of the NFC.
Yep.
So that's going to be, and Seattle, I think, is going to be a problem this year. So, man, I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this is an 8-8 team, because when it comes down to it, they're going to have to beat in the division, and I don't know if I could trust them against San Francisco at this point. I don't know if I could trust them against Seattle at this point. Even Arizona had their number for the 2 games last year, and I think beat them in one of those games. So, right. I don't know, man. 8 wins might be 8 wins might be what you're gunning for here if you're a Rams fan, and obviously, you know, they've got the big game potential, right? They can have those 40 or 50-point games every now and then, but that's not what you're looking for this year. This year, you need to have consistency. You can't just come out and burst this year. There's no preseason. You have to come out from week 1 consistent and playing the way that you want to play. So, yeah, I think 8-8 is probably what I would suspect them to do, but you never know when it comes to, big offenses, they could go crazy.
Let's jump up to Seattle. We'll talk about the Seahawks. You mentioned they're going to be a problem, obviously, with Russell Wilson up there. Then you also got running back-wise Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. Tyler Lockett, DJ Metcalf, and Philip Dorsett II are your wide receivers, with the ageless one, Greg Olsen, starting at tight end.
Oh, I forgot he was there.
Wow. Your left to right is Dwayne Brown, Mike Iupati, Ethan Pocic, Damian Lewis, and Brandon Shell.
That's a pretty good left side of the offensive line.
Yeah, is your offensive line. Then they run a 4-3. Rasheem Green, Poona Ford, Jaron Reed, and Brendan Mayowa is your front four.
They could have really used bringing back Jadeveon, but
Clowney.
after the Adams deal, I'm not sure that's possible.
Nope. Then you got KJ Wright, Bobby Wagner, and Bruce Irvin from weak to strong, and then your hold on a second. Am I missing something? Oh, no, I'm not. And then your secondary, Shaquille Griffin, Jamal Adams, Quadre Diggs, and Quentin Dunbar as your secondary. And then looking at the schedule for the Seattle Seahawks, it's going to be
probably another tough schedule for them too, man.
Yep. At Atlanta, home against New England. That's Sunday night. Home against Dallas. At Miami. Home against Minnesota. Then they get the bye week. Then it's at Arizona. Home against San Francisco. At Buffalo. At the Rams. Home against Arizona. At Philly. That's a Monday night game. Home against the Giants. Home against the Jets. At Washington. Home against the Rams. And then they finish at San Francisco.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with Seattle is, Russell Wilson's going to will them into a few games, right? He's going to find a way. I think they are going to probably play outside the division very tough, but we know how it is when they play inside the division. It's always tough games too.
Right.
And they are one of the few teams that made it look relatively easy against San Francisco last year when they played them, whereas every other team had a really tough time with that defense, whereas Seattle was doing just fine, just couldn't find timely scores to beat them. So I think this is probably closer to a 10 to 12 win team. The problem with them is depth on the defense is not very great, so they're very top heavy. If they do lose a couple of those guys, like let's say you lose a KJ Wright or a Bobby Wagner in the first couple weeks, you might be in trouble because that front four isn't as strong as they would hope, I'm sure. And obviously I'm sure they would hope that they can get Jadeveon Clowney back, but I don't see that happening. I
don't see it happening either.
Yeah, I don't think they have the money for that at this point. And if you're Seattle, you're really just hoping that you could win ball games the way that Pete Carroll loves to do it, which is, put the ball in the hand of your quarterback, let him give you a couple timely drives, and let your defense do the rest. And we'll see how that works out for them this year. But I think 10 wins is probably in line here. I think all three of the top teams in this division have a chance at 10 wins this year.
Most definitely. I agree with you on that. I think it's going to be a dogfight between San Francisco and Seattle. I think both these teams are really good. I think the acquisition of Jamal Adams really helps solidify that secondary. I'm just afraid of who's going to get pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, that's tough.
I think that's the biggest question for me.
Yeah,
is who's going to get.
You don't have Michael Bennett or
Jadeveon anymore.
Or even Frank Clark when they had him. It was always somebody off the edge coming off. And who knows though? Seattle is kind of one of those teams that we talked about before. They just bring in somebody that you've never heard of, and somehow now they're one of the best players on the team. So who knows? Like Benson Mowoya or whatever his name is was a candidate for breakout player of the year. So we'll see. But yeah, I think it's going to be a dogfight between them and San Francisco too. And San Francisco this year, it's hard to say this, but because they've had a lot of guys that they had to let go. But they may be even better this year defensively because last year, they're playing basically the first year and a half in Robert Saleh's system. And I think Saleh is he's gonna tighten things up because that front, obviously they lost DeForest Buckner. They lost a couple of components on offense, including Emmanuel Sanders. They lost Matt Matt Breida and a couple of other guys on the offensive line. But I think overall San Francisco right now, with Jimmy G and that defense have a really, really good shot at it, because I just think Kyle Shanahan I don't want him calling plays for me in the Super Bowl. But if you're talking about 16 regular season games, I think he's probably one of the best play callers in the league. I just think that it's hard for him in big time situations right now. And I think they had let's call a spade. They should have won that Super Bowl. They had Kansas City right where they wanted them, and they couldn't finish. And at the end of the day, Kyle Shanahan has to work on that. This isn't an aberration. When you have Atlanta go up, 24 to what was the Atlanta and Patriots score? It was like
28-3.
28-3. And you give that game up. And then last year, you're in a position where you want to be. 3.5 quarters in. Technically speaking, you were still in a very good position. And the last basically 12 minutes of the game, you lost. So, Kyle Shanahan's got to step up, but I like the team overall. I think they got a solid depth, and at the end of the day, there's going to be enough plays to be made there. I think Deebo Samuel is going to be a big part of that as well, and obviously George Kittle.
My fault, dude.
Oh, you good?
My phone's blowing up. All right. And then lastly, San Francisco. You mentioned it, Jimmy G out there along with Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman in the backfield.
Is McKinnon still? Jerick McKinnon still on their squad? He is. Okay.
Yep.
So not bad running backs.
And then Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Kendrick Bourne are the wide receivers. Tavon Austin is also on this team too. So is Dante Pettis. George Kittle obviously is your starting tight end. And then Trent Williams, Laken Tomlinson, Weston Richburg, Daniel Brunskill, and Mike McGlinchey is the offensive line for San Francisco.
I forgot they brought in Trent Williams, man. That was a great
That's right,
pickup.
yep. For I think like a second-round pick or something like that.
Nice. You just Joe Staley leaves, and boom, you just pick right where you left off.
Exactly. Then they run the 4-3, so Nick Bosa, Javon Kinlaw, DJ Jones, and Eric Armstead.
It's crazy to think about that they lost one of the best defensive linemen in the league, and they're still probably in the top 5 right now.
Because Javon Kinlaw was their draft pick from this past year.
And then DJ Jones had a tremendous year last year on the inside, and then you've already got, Eric Armstead.
Solomon Thomas is back
there Solomon
still.
Thomas too. And then also, let's remember, DeForest Buckner, they had to give him up to Indianapolis, and he's nothing but a max player for them right now.
Right. And then your linebackers is Quan Alexander, Fred Warner, and Dre Greenlaw. And then your cornerbacks is Richard Sherman, Jaquiski Chart. Oh, excuse me, like I can't speak to say this man's name. Jaquiski Tart, Jimmy Ward, and Emmanuel Mosley is in the backfield for the San Francisco 49ers. And then looking at their schedule going into this year, looks like this. They start off home against Arizona, at the Jets, at New York, the New York Giants, home against Philly, home against Miami, home against the Rams, at New England, at Seattle, home against Green Bay, at New Orleans before they get the bye week. Then they have to play at the Rams, home against Buffalo. That's a Monday night game. Home against the Washington football team, at Dallas, at Arizona, and then they finish off against Seattle. Like I said, man, I think this is a dogfight between Seattle and San Francisco. But if I was to say who I think would be better amongst the two, something tells me I think it's going to be San Francisco. I just trust San Francisco right now a little bit better defensively than I do Seattle. Like I said, I think that the trade for Jamal Adams was good for Seattle. But like you just mentioned, okay, you were able to trade away DeForest Buckner, who's one of the better front sevens, to have Javon Kinlaw fall right into your lap, and probably you're not going to miss a beat.
Yeah.
So I think that that's huge for for San Francisco, in that front seven, because we all know how really good Nick Bosa is.
Yeah.
And then
he wasn't even fully unleashed last year.
Even fully unleashed.
And he did all that.
Exactly. So
I worry about injuries with them, though. That defense, especially linebackers like Quan Alexander, Fred Warner, and they both have had some injury issues. And let's be honest, let's call a spade a spade. Richard Sherman, he's not a spring chicken. If he misses any time, I mean, let's remember, I think he played 15 or 16 games in the regular season last year. That's not always a guarantee with him. So we talked about top heaviness. I do worry a little bit about the top heaviness of San Francisco, because if they do lose a couple of those guys, which again, throw everything out the window about what you know about NFL football this year, because it's not going to be the same. You need teams that are going to be ready from day one. I think game planning wise, they're going to be fine. Who knows though? When you look at it, Matt Breida had a tremendous season. Emmanuel Sanders was a very big help for them late in the season. Obviously, getting Trent Williams is big, but that offense wasn't exactly retooled. They just, they drafted Brandon Ayuk, who's a great young wide receiver, but you've got a lot of holes if you miss some top-heavy people there. So I do imagine, though, like you said, it's going to be between Seattle and San Francisco. And I think for the most part, I think San Francisco has the weaponry to do it both offensively and defensively. So I'll take them to win the division. And I think both of those teams make the playoffs.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
But it's gonna be a dogfight for even the Rams and the Cardinals too, because it's like if the Rams are anything like we think they are going to be, or if they show up the way that they showed up 2 years ago, who knows? They may be another 10-win team. So really tough division. Both of those divisions. I think the North and the West are both going to be tough divisions this year.
I agree.
And I think you may see 2 playoff teams out of both of those divisions. At the very least, San Francisco.
And how many is it's 8 teams this year?
It's 8 teams this year, yeah. So I think they expanded it basically one. You basically don't get a bye week this year, so you're basically going to be seeding right away. It's going to be good for teams like the Bears. Good for teams like Tampa Bay. Probably not good news for teams like Seattle and San Francisco and these other teams, because it's like, man, you're gonna give me the Bears in the first week of the playoffs, or even like again, if Tampa Bay. Let's say they overachieve or underachieve at some points of the season, and they're a low seed, and you have to face the number 1 or the number 2 seed. That's a tough out when you got Tom Brady and that type of weaponry and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's another interesting thing. No preseason and expanded postseason.
And we'll get into the South next week, but I accidentally hit Tampa's button instead of San Francisco's when I was talking about Seattle. And I guess there's a report saying that Tom Brady was fired up at Bucs camp. Tom Brady's about to have fun. Here's what I'm saying. Obviously, you and I were blessed to watch 2 of the greatest quarterbacks in the game play against one another, with Peyton and with Tom.
Yeah.
And the thing with Peyton is we saw the greatness, the real greatness, I think, of Peyton Manning when he left Indianapolis and went to Denver. And how and let's look at it from a Denver perspective, and let's look at it from a fantasy perspective. Mm-hmm. Because from a Denver perspective, they were 1 quarterback away from going to the Super Bowl. Tim Tebow, for what it's worth, was taking them to the playoffs. But they just didn't have enough faith in him for obvious reasons, that he could throw the football and carry the team to go further and blah, blah, blah. So what do? Well, here's a Peyton Manning who's still at the twilight of his career, but still has 5-6 years left in the tank. Even after the neck injury, he still had 5-6 good years in the tank. And all he did was take Denver to the playoffs, took him to the Super Bowl twice, and won one more ring.
Yeah.
Okay? I think Tom Brady is going down that same path. The only difference is Tom Brady's not coming off no significant injury like Peyton did.
Yeah.
You could tell that towards the end, that neck injury was really starting to catch up to Peyton.
Yeah.
And those throws that he was able to make in his Indianapolis days started to become a little less able to make in his his Denver days, and that's fine.
Sure.
But he was still great. But when you look at Tom Brady and what's on the line for Tom Brady, his legacy, can he win outside of Bill Belichick? All the questions and stuff, right? Something tells me he is, because it's what's around. It's the same thing I keep saying about Mitch.
Yeah.
I don't think Mitch is a crap quarterback. I just think that he's not in a position to where he's going to win because the weaponry around him sucks.
Yeah.
When you look at Tom Brady, everyone's like, oh, Tom Brady's arm strength last year sucked. I don't think his arm strength sucked. I just think he didn't have wide receivers that could catch the ball, not named Julian Edelman.
And separation-wise, who was making separation down the field?
N'Keal Harry wasn't.
Yeah, no.
You know,
I mean, even Mohamed Sanu, he was not a long guy. And when you've got when you got the catch radius of Mike Evans, when you got the spacing of Godwin, we got the catch radius of Gronkowski. You know, you're gonna have more.
O.J. Howard can be a big play guy.
You're gonna have more opportunities that. Arm strength is not going to really kill you.
I mean, it's so many weapons in Tampa. You have Scotty Miller that's coming back from a hamstring injury. You got this kid that and for the life of me, I can't think of his name, but they drafted this young kid out of Minnesota who can even fit in the slot.
Right.
You have Cameron Brake that is a red zone nightmare. There are so many. And then you sign LaShawn McCoy.
And he's talking great things about Rojo. He's saying,
And Rojo.
Yeah.
One of the most underrated signings that we're going to talk about is them bringing in LaShawn McCoy. Think about the evolution of Rojo. Rojo was drafted in the second round a couple years ago. He was supposed to be the fastest running back out of that crew. Yeah. Then he goes from being the fastest running back to basically being made fun of because he couldn't understand the playbook. Yeah. But that's because Dirk Cutter didn't want to teach it to him. Then they went from there to him last year kind of taking on a role that maybe he was or wasn't ready for, but who was behind him, though, that was going to teach him. Now you bring in a LaShawn McCoy who's been in the ringer, who's been on great teams, who is a fine running back himself. Now he has a mentor. All right, man, hold on a second. Okay, so what did you see on that block? What did you see in them holes?
Yeah.
I could see it from where I'm at. That's where you should have run. Yo, work on the vision. Work
Pass
on that.
protection.
Man,
yeah.
Come on, bro.
And also, remember, who is Tom Brady's favorite target in New England?
James Lewis.
James
White.
James White. And but before him, Deion Lewis.
Yep.
So LaShawn can now fill that role. Even though he's not necessarily known as a guy who has hands, he's a guy who's been in the league long enough to catch. And we know how much Brady loves safety valves. There's gonna be a lot of speculation here about what type of Tom Brady we're gonna get this year. Meaning, are the Bucs gonna stretch him out to see what they can get from him? But I think Bruce Arians is too smart to do that. Yep. I think he understands that, listen, I've got what I need here. I don't need to go down the field too much if I don't want to. I don't have to have him throw 60, 70-yard balls if we don't need to. So, same thing with, listen, Bruce Arians is not dumb. He's been around the block. He's worked with these guys like Roethlisberger, worked with the Kurt Warners of the world. He knows what it's like to work with these types of legendary quarterbacks. I see Tom Brady, and fantasy-wise too, he's being disrespected pretty heavily. I think they have him as a bottom 10 quarterback, meaning they're not giving him too much potential. Meaning
So let's name them: Mahomes,
Jackson.
I would put, as much as it pains me, Aaron Rodgers.
You put Kyler Murray in there because of the running. You're going to put
4.
Deshaun Jackson because of the running,
That's
more than
5.
likely, or Deshaun Watson, excuse me. Really, after that, you can make a case for pretty much anybody, including Brady. So I think
Russell Wilson
for sure. I think even, at the end of the day, if you look at it, Goff has the potential to be there, but is he really over Brady? Probably not. That's the thing about quarterbacks is, too, it also depends what type of league you're in because, I saw somebody take, I was in a mock draft the other day and Brady was a third quarterback taken. That's not that crazy to me.
No.
After everything we've seen from Brady the last couple of years and how he's proven people wrong, you never know, man. Listen, when you got the type of weaponry that he's got, he's not going to have to do too much. I do have a feeling, though, that this year they're going to be playing in some shootouts because when it comes down to it, the defense had a tremendous, almost perfect year last year with the Buccaneers, and you can't expect perfect this year. So you're going to expect them to take a step or two back, but you got Brady, and we'll talk about that next week because there's going to be a lot to unpack with the South.
Well. Oh, man.
This is a historic moment for our show here. As
I'll be the I'll be calling in next week because I'll be in Texas, but this is the last show that I'll be doing in studio. The podcast, because we were asked about this earlier, the podcast is still going on. Yeah. It's not stopping. So to kind of give you guys an update of what's going on, next week, there's a great chance that I'll be calling in if I'm not set up by the time the show comes on. I will be calling in, and then Mack will be on remote, so I won't be on the next show, but then I think it's
probably 3 weeks from now.
3 weeks from now, so that's probably the 18th or so. I'll be zooming in from Texas, so he'll be reporting live here in the Chicagoland area. I'll be in the Houston area. So this is my last weekend. We're not going to end
this thing because of location.
Exactly. So
differences, guys.
So between Mack, myself, Steve, we're going to figure all this stuff out. The podcast is not dying. No. It's still going to keep going.
And shout out to Steve too, man, for still keeping this going for us. And there's going to be a lot of wrinkles to iron out over the next couple of weeks, but we're going to get it done. And
we're going to get it done.
Big props to Steve.
Hell right. So that's right. It was my last show here in the studio.
Historic. But
I've been on this farewell tour now for almost the entire week, and I've done packing in my head, but I haven't done packing legit. So I got to get on that soon. But it's been a fun ride. Yeah, I know it's been a fun ride here in Illinois. Yeah. But
safe travels, safe moving, and congrats to you and your lady, man. That's a really awesome thing, and I'm happy for you guys. And at the end of the day, it's all about just I want you to be safe, and I just want you to, we'll take care of the show while you're out, and whenever you're back, we'll get back to high gear.
That's right. By the time I'm back, you don't want to miss the show next when we hype up the South.
No, definitely.
And then once the football shows start, man, it's about to be popping. It's about to be popping. So, all right, guys. Well, it's been fun hanging out with you. Thank God to Dylan Betances for helping the Yankees out, even that you're not in the Yankees uniform.
And fuck the Royals.
Exactly, and the Royals decided to open up, but the Sox made it interesting, but too much of a comeback. All right. So for Mack, for Steve, I'm also Negro Black saying good night, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
Deuce.